Hello, everybody. Hold up, my microphone is a little far from me. I'm gonna hear some noise here. All right, how's that? Is that a little better? How is everybody doing? What? Hold up, I hear myself. Why am I hearing myself? I shouldn't be hearing myself. Whoopsie, what's going on here? Ah, there we go. All right, now I see why I was hearing myself. Well, good evening, kids. Welcome to a special edition, The Abyss. I am your host, of course, The Eternal Abyss. How is everybody doing today? I want to say hello to everybody on all the platforms that I am on. Hello to everybody on float.app. Hello to everybody on Periscope, if that happens to be working. I hope it is. We'll see what happens with that because Twitter is borked, but we're going to talk about that in a moment. At least it was last I checked. Maybe things got fixed. I don't know. But hello, everybody on Periscope. Hello to everybody on DLive. Hello to everybody on YouTube. Hello to everybody on Twitch. And hello to everybody, of course, on Bitwave. Hello. I mean, every Thursday, the stream is in the evening. Nothing special there. But this is a special version of an evening stream because we have the Dueling Townhalls. Oh, yeah. So, what we have going on here, for those that may not realize this or were under a rock, you have two town halls happening right now. One on ABC, one on NBC. ABC is for Joe Biden, and one on NBC is for Donald Trump. Both starting tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mom Patch, hey! It has been quite a while. How are you? How are you? Welcome to the stream. So this is gonna be fun. This is gonna be very fun, kids. Mostly because, I mean, I'm not gonna show both. I'm only gonna show Trump's because I don't want to give any viewership over to the Biden town hall. Plus, Steven Crowder is already doing like a Biden town hall live fact checking. So he can do that. I'm gonna let him take care of that. I'm not gonna bother with all that. It's so special. It needs its own special school. Yeah, I know, right? Hello on YouTube there. Yeah, it's very silly. It's very silly. But this is a result. This is a result of the ridiculous and contentious behavior of the Committee for Presidential Debates. These guys really need to get their whole thing disbanded. So there's a couple things happening right now, okay? A couple things going on. The Eternal Dental Plan, what's going on? With dental planning? The town halls are live now. No, they start at 9. They don't start now. Am I late? Wait, hold on. Let me turn my TV on here for a second. To my knowledge, it's supposed to start at 9 p.m., not now. Let's see. Oh.
Probably where it was going. Maybe it
well,
was.
I was going to say, you bring it up. You brought it up yourself. I mean, are you trying to say you believe a military family gave you?
I don't know where it came from, okay. And you don't know where it came from, and the doctors don't know where it came from. But as the president, I have to be. I also know.
Well, there's no one that says you can't be out there, but it's just about where. For example, your rallies don't require masks.
No. I mean, let's see Kamala. She's got people now.
Hold on, let me see if I can find a stream to put onto the to stream right now.
As president, I have to be out there. I can't be in a basement. I can't be locked in a very beautiful room someplace in the White House. And I want to see the Gold Star families, and I want to see everything. And I also say to people all the time, it's risky doing it. It is risky doing
but
it.
As president, you're right. You don't want to. You want to be a leader, but you also are a leader in a sense of an. If you're not wearing a mask when your administration best practice right now. Wear a mask. No, it's not foolproof.
But many people are catching it. Many people are getting this disease that was sent to us by China, and it shouldn't have been allowed to happen. But many people are getting this, and I mean, nobody's being blamed. Everybody is working hard to get this thing out of our country, get it out of the world. Look at what's going on in Europe. Massive spikes. They've done a very good job, but now you take a look today at the UK, you take a look at Spain and France and Italy. There's tremendous spikes.
But our death rate
1 second.
will not Spain, but those other countries.
I have things right here that will tell you exactly the opposite.
Me too.
So the UK is up 2,500%, because I knew you'd be doing this. I knew very well. The UK is up 2,500%. The EU is up 702%, and the United States is down 21%.
So we have our deaths per capita is among the highest in death rate.
Excess mortality, we're a winner on the excess mortality. And what we've done has been amazing, and we have done an amazing job. And it's rounding the corner, and we have the vaccines coming, the therapies coming. And I'll tell you what, one thing, when I got it, I had a choice, do nothing or use some of the things that we're looking at, like in this case, Regeneron. And Eli Lilly makes something that's supposed to be incredible. And I think that maybe I would be doing this discussion with you now. We have therapies now and cures. Maybe you can use the word cure, but we have therapies that are absolutely incredible.
I want to pick up on something you just said. You said we're rounding the corner.
I believe we're rounding the corner.
Now, 10% of the country currently has had COVID. That means 80, 90%, 90%, just do the math, is still vulnerable.
It's rounding the corner, and we have the vaccines coming, and we have the therapies coming. And I'll tell you what, one thing, when I got it, I had a choice, do nothing or use some of the things that we're looking at, like in this case, Regeneron. Yeah. And Eli Lilly makes something that's supposed to be incredible. And I think that maybe I wouldn't be doing this discussion with you right now. We have therapies now and cures. Maybe you can use the word cure, but we have therapies that are absolutely incredible.
I want to pick up on something you just said. You said we're rounding the corner.
I believe we're rounding the corner.
Now, 10% of the country approximately has had COVID. That means 80, 90%, 90%, let's do the math, is still vulnerable.
Right.
There's been some talk, including from the White House lately, that perhaps it approves of what's called herd immunity. That's where you basically just let young people and everybody get sick. You try to protect the old people and those who are sick, and hopefully it gets up to a certain level, and now we're all immune. Yeah. So let's just be clear about it. It also means more deaths. Do you support herd immunity as a strategy? Essentially just let people get sick.
The cure cannot be worse than the problem itself. We did the right thing. We were expected to lose 2,200,000 people and maybe more than that. We're at 210,000 people. One person is too much. It should have never happened. He can do anything. He can go voting and do whatever he wants, but nobody else can. The fact is we're winning these cases because it's unconstitutional.
It's one thing to tell them they can be anything. It's another to show them. Kamala Harris has taken on some of the toughest fights, all with a sense of style. And someday soon, anyone will be able to see themselves as president.
The question is, should the deaths be better than 200,000 when, relative to the rest of the world, we have a worse death rate?
I left North Carolina, which I love. I left Pennsylvania. We won a big case in Michigan because that governor has a lockdown where nobody but her husband can do anything. He can go voting and do whatever he wants, but nobody else can. The fact is we're winning all these cases because it's unconstitutional what they're doing. And I think they're doing it for political reasons. But the fact is the cure, you can't let this continue to go on with the lockdowns.
Well, most
and I
of the
believe
states,
that on November 4th, you're going to have a lot of these governors. Look at what's happening to New York. New York is a mess. They lost almost 40,000 people. They have a lockdown like you've never seen. Now they're open. It's like a ghost town.
Let's get to him.
And Savannah, it's very important. People are leaving New York by the thousands. And you're going to have a hard time ever building it up again. That cure, that so-called cure that you talk about, it can't be worse than the problem. The problem is a bad problem.
We've got more questions on COVID, so let's drop it for now. We were supposed to, as mentioned, be watching you on a debate stage right now. We're not doing that, so let's clear up a few things from the last one. You were asked point blank to denounce white supremacy. In the moment, You didn't. You asked some follow-up questions. Who specifically? A couple of days later, on a different show, you denounced white supremacy.
No, you
My
always
question
do
to you is,
you've done this to
why
me and
does
everybody.
it seem like
I denounced white supremacy, okay?
You did
I
2 days
denounced
later.
white supremacy for years, but you always do it. You always start off with a question. You didn't ask Joe Biden whether or not he denounces Antifa. I watched him on the same basic show with Lester Holt, and he was asking questions like Biden was a child.
so this is a little bit of a dodge.
Are you listening? I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
What's your next question?
Do you feel, it feels sometimes you're hesitant to do so, like you wait a beat.
Here we go again. Every time, in fact, my people came, I'm sure they'll ask you the white supremacy question. I denounce white supremacy.
Okay.
And frankly, you want to know something? I denounce Antifa, and I denounce these people on the left that are burning down our cities that are run by Democrats who don't
All right,
know what
while
they're
we're
doing.
denouncing, let me ask you about QAnon. It is this theory that Democrats are a satanic pedophile ring and that you are the savior of that. Now, can you just once and for all state that that is completely not true
So,
and that disavow
I know-
QAnon in its entirety?
I know nothing about QAnon.
I just told
I
you.
know very little. You told me, but what you tell me doesn't necessarily make it fact. I hate to say that. I know nothing about it. I do know they are very much against pedophilia. They fight it very hard, but I know nothing about it.
They believe it is
If
a
you'd like
satanic
me to
cult run by the deep
study
state.
the subject, I'll tell you what I do know about. I know about Antifa, and I know about the radical left, and I know how violent they are and how vicious they are, and I know how they're burning down cities run by Democrats, not run by
Republican
Republicans.
Senator Ben Sass said, quote, QAnon is nuts and real leaders call conspiracy theories conspiracy theories.
He may be
Why not
right.
just say it's
Can I be
crazy
honest?
and not true?
He may be right. I just don't know about QAnon.
You do know.
I don't know. No, I don't know. I don't know.
Let me
tell
ask you
all
another
about
thing.
it. Let's waste a whole show. You start off with white supremacy. I denounce it. You start off with something else. Let's go. Keep asking me these questions.
I do have one more in this vein.
Let me just tell you, what I do hear about it is they are very strongly against pedophilia. And I agree with that. I mean, I do agree with that, and I agree
but
with it
there's not
very
a satanic
strongly.
pedophile
I have
cult
no
being run
idea.
by.
I know
You
nothing
don't know
about
that? Okay.
No, I don't know
You
that.
just
and neither,
this
neither
week.
do you know that.
Okay, just this week
Why,
you
why aren't
retweeted.
you asking me about Antifa? Why aren't you asking me
'Cause you
about the
just-
radical left?
because you're
Why aren't
volunteering
you
it.
asking Joe Biden questions about why doesn't he condemn Antifa? Why does he say it doesn't exist?
Because you're here before me.
No, excuse that's so cute. Antifa exists. They're vicious, they're violent, they kill people, and they're burning down our cities. And they happen to be radical left.
Just this week, you retweeted to your 87 million followers a conspiracy theory that Joe Biden orchestrated to have SEAL Team 6, the Navy SEAL Team 6, killed to cover up the fake death of bin Laden. Now, why would you send a lie
I know
like that
nothing
to your
about
followers?
it.
You
Can I-
retweeted
That was
it.
a retweet. That was an opinion of somebody, and that was a retweet. I'll put it out there. People can
I
decide for
don't get
themselves.
that.
I
You're
don't
the
take a
president.
position.
You're not like someone's crazy uncle who can just retweet whatever.
That was a retweet, and I do a lot of retweets. And frankly, because the media is so fake and so corrupt, if I didn't have social media, I don't call it Twitter, I call it social media, I wouldn't be able to get the word out. And the word
is false.
and you know what the word is? The word is very simple. We're building our country stronger and better than it's ever been before. And that's what's happening, and everybody knows it.
Okay, we
you
got
know
a
what
bunch
else
of
the word
questions
is?
for you.
We're winning in a lot of states.
Okay.
We're winning in a lot of states. You're gonna
Let me
see that.
ask, okay, I'm glad you brought up the election because I do want to ask about that. That's another kind of leftover item. A lot of people have asked you, will you accept a peaceful transfer of power? You have said repeatedly, the only way we lose this election is if it is rigged. Now, that is simply not true. The fact is either candidate can lose fair and square without ballot
Sure,
fraud.
and
So
you know
will you
what?
accept the results
Win or
of the
lose,
election?
That's the way I want it to be. But when I see thousands of ballots, right, unsolicited ballots being given out by the millions, and thousands of them are dumped in dumpsters, and when you see ballots with the name Trump, military ballots from our great military, and they're dumped in garbage cans.
That is a handful. We could go all night, which we won't.
No,
but
no,
we
it's
could go all
happening
night,
every day.
one by one, a single case, a single day. You're talking about 150 million votes. Your own FBI director says there is no evidence of widespread
Oh, really?
fraud.
Well, then he's not doing a very good job. All you have to do is pick up the papers every day. 50,000 in Ohio, the great state of Ohio. 50,000 in another location, I think North Carolina. 500,000 applications in Virginia. No, there's a tremendous problem. But let me just tell you, they talk about the peaceful transfer, right? They spied on my campaign and they got caught, and they spied heavily on my campaign, and they tried to take down a duly elected sitting president, and then they talk about, will you accept a peaceful transfer? And the answer is yes, I will. But I want it to be an honest election, and so does everybody else. When I see thousands of ballots dumped in a garbage can and they happen to have my name on it, I'm not happy about that.
Okay, but just those are there is in fact no evidence of widespread fraud, and you were sowing doubt about our democracy.
How can you say that? You do read newspapers.
I do.
You do watch the news.
Yes,
I know you read the news, but you watch it.
I do.
Because every day they're talking about ballots that are corrupt, that are fraudulent.
And millions that are
Sure.
being processed right now.
But you can win a race. Take a look at me. You can win a race by 1%.
But why are you laying the groundwork for that right now? It's
I'm
like
not.
if I
I don't
go
want
play
that to
tennis with
happen.
my husband and I say my ankle's
Do you
hurting
know
right
what?
now.
I don't want that to happen, Savannah. I want it to be clean.
Okay.
I really feel we're going to win. But I want this to be clean. But it's sort of ironic that you and them talk about the peaceful transfer when I spent 3.5 years fighting off these maniacs, and now it turns out, everything's there, that they were the ones that dealt with Russia. And it's too bad. But peaceful transfer, I absolutely want that. But ideally, I don't want to transfer because I want to win.
Yes, and I think that your words will probably reassure some folks. Let's get to our first voter. We've got Jacqueline Lugo. Now, she is, I told you this audience is truly split between y'all. You are leaning Biden. She voted for Clinton in 2016. She's registered as an independent. Jacqueline, what's your question for the president? And hold the mic up close and take off your mic because it's hard to hear out here.
Good evening.
How are you?
Welcome to Miami.
Thank you very much. It's beautiful.
Mr. President, if you knew COVID-19, as you told Bob Woodward in February,
As what?
as you told Bob Woodward in February, was airborne and deadlier than the flu, why did you only put in place a travel ban from China and not put in place other measures mitigating the spread of COVID-19, potentially saving tens of thousands of American lives?
Well, I did put it in very early, as you know. Joe Biden was 2 months behind me, and he called me xenophobic and racist and everything else because I put it in. And it turned out that I was 100% right. I also put it on Europe very early because I saw there was a lot of infection in Europe. And it's sort of an amazing question, and I appreciate the question and respect the question, but the news doesn't get out the right answer because I put on a travel ban far earlier than Dr. Fauci thought it was necessary, who I like, far earlier than the scientists. I was actually the only one that wanted to put it on, and I did it actually against the advice of a lot of people, including Nancy Pelosi, who had no clue what she was doing, and Biden. When I put on the travel ban, I put it on in January, the end of January. When I put on the travel ban, Joe Biden and others said, this is ridiculous. You don't do that. Well, Dr. Fauci said I saved thousands and thousands of lives.
Did you?
I was early. I was extremely early when I put on the travel ban.
Can I ask you, did your national security advisor on January 28th in the Oval Office warn you that this would be the greatest national security risk of your administration? He didn't say it, or you don't remember?
I read it someplace. Maybe Woodward said it or something. But no, he did not say that. But I knew it was a big threat. At the same time, I don't want to panic this country. I don't want to go out and say everybody's going to die. Everybody's
Isn't there a middle ground? You don't have to
there's not a
mislead,
middle
but you
ground.
can.
No, there's not a middle ground. You have to be safe, you have to be vigilant, and you have to be smart.
You're going to like this next couple of voters. It's a mom and a daughter.
Good.
Mom, Barbara, voted for you in 2016. She's leaning to vote for you again. Now, her daughter was too young to vote last time. She's going to vote for her first time in a presidential campaign, and she is leaning Biden. So imagine the dinner table at their house, okay? So, Barbara, why don't you go first and ask your question?
Bienvenido a Miami.
Thank you.
Mr. Trump, as a frontline ER ER doctor working through the coronavirus pandemic.
Right.
I know firsthand, and I've seen that many hospitals throughout the United States are suffering financial hardships. These economic effects are trickling down to the frontline workers.
Right.
We are being, across the country, frontline workers are being fired, they're being furloughed, our salaries are being cut. And this is also happening in other economic sectors as well, including the travel industry and hospitality.
Right.
My question to you is, how are you going to get the United States back on track, both in terms of the economy and the pandemic?
So it's happening. We just set a record, 11.4 million jobs. We are going to have a phenomenal third quarter, which will be announced on November 1st, just prior to the big November 3rd day, where I think you're going to see a red wave. But we're going to have a tremendous announcement, I believe. I mean, we're going to find out. But GDP is going through the roof. Jobs, real estate, houses, so many things are happening. So people were saying we were going to have a 42% unemployment. Look, this was a thing that came into our country, and it happened more than 100 years ago, and it happened now. They were talking about a 42% unemployment
Who
rate.
was talking
It
about
came
that?
out-
I heard
It just came out
20%.
at 7.8% unemployment, and people can't even believe it. Our economy is going to be, next year, if we don't have somebody that raises taxes and quadruples taxes, which they want to do and kills everything, our economy is going to be phenomenal next year. We're going to have a phenomenal, and I'll tell you, Savannah, we had the greatest economy in the history of our country last year, including the state of Florida, where we are now, and Pennsylvania, and North Carolina, and Ohio, every place. We had the greatest economy we ever had. We had to close it down. We saved 2 million lives. We're opening it up. We have a V-shape, and it's coming back. It's coming back very fast. One other thing, we really helped the hospitals. We've sent billions and billions of dollars to the hospitals. In addition, hundreds of millions of masks and gowns, and we went into the ventilator business because this country was not equipped with ventilators. And I'm not blaming anybody for it, but we're now making thousands of ventilators a month, and we have all we can use. We're sending them all over the world because the world needs them. So they've worked very hard and really very, very effectively. Thank you. Great question.
Let's talk to Isabella. Put the mic close to your mouth. Okay, go ahead.
Mr. President, my parents are, as you heard, both frontline healthcare workers, and I've seen the physical and the mental tolls that this pandemic has taken on them firsthand, as well as the exacerbation of coronavirus due to Americans who are not wearing masks or participating in social distancing. After contracting COVID-19 yourself, has your opinion changed on the importance of mask wearing?
No, because I was okay with the masks. I was good with it, but I've heard many different stories on masks. I mean, I had, being president, you have people, they bring meals, they bring this, and I had an instance recently where a very wonderful person is bringing me a meal, and he's playing with his mask, and he's touching his mask all over the place, and then he's bringing a plate in, and I'm saying, well, I don't know if that's so good. I mean, the good news, I didn't eat it, okay? I decided not to eat it. This was a month ago, but look, you have on the masks, you have two stories. You have a story where they want, a story where they don't want. I am all for it.
I don't get that, because it's just all of your public health officials, your administration, they're in unison about this.
No.
They're all in unison about it. The University of Washington, which is they have a model that your coronavirus task force relies on, says that if everyone wore a mask, you could cut expected deaths in half.
And then you have other people that
60,000 lives.
disagree.
Well, what does that mean?
Scott Atkins, if you look at Scott, Dr. Scott, he's from great guy, Stanford. He will tell you
He's
that
not
he
an
disagrees
infectious
with you.
disease expert.
Oh, I don't know. Look, he's an expert. He's one of the great experts of the world.
But I don't get it, because you have so much power and influence as president.
I'm
You
all
could
for
go
it.
to you could
By the way,
require it at your rallies,
I
and you
never
could
said don't wear
say,
it.
everyone put on a mask right now, and the University of Washington says you would
Savannah,
save
University
lives.
of Washington, then you have other places say different things. You have a lot of, hey, Dr. Fauci said don't wear a mask, right?
At first, but then everybody agreed.
Well, I don't know that he changed his mind. But then you have a report coming out 2 days ago that 85% of the people wearing masks
I looked at
catch
that
it.
report. It's not about mask wearing. It was neutral on the question of
Savannah,
masks.
we're on the same side. I say wear the mask. I'm fine with it. I
Okay.
have no problem. We're on the same side.
Let's take a break. We're going to get more questions right after this.
Wow. Okay. I had no idea that this had already started. I knew that it was supposed to start at 9. So apologies. I thought I had an hour to chit-chat a little bit and talk, so we're going to just talk in between commercial breaks, apparently. So this is just a live stream, so you won't see any commercials. You just see the break. When it comes back, we'll kick it back on. But wow, okay. We're gonna just jump right into the analysis. I don't know who this woman is, but she apparently does not know how to do her job. That's really what it boils down to me. You don't act like that in a moderator capacity. Yes, a terrible host. You're right, Mandalorian. I failed. Failure on my part on that one. Samantha Uppity, that's what her name is. Oh, she does the NBC morning show. Okay, I don't watch the NBC morning show or any morning show, but especially the NBC morning show. No, it's ridiculous. Savannah Guthrie. Savannah Guthrie. Well, she does seem like all mouth and no substance. I mean, listen, I understand you want to push back and maybe challenge a little bit, but first of all, let the guy finish a sentence, first of all. You can let the person you want to push back against and challenge to finish a sentence. Secondly, if you're going to challenge someone and interrupt them, at least be substantive about it. Not just while he's talking and answering someone, just go, who is saying that? Who? Shut up. Oh, I do know she knows what she's trying to do. She is trying to trip up Trump and provoke him. That's what these moderators do. They're trying to get a rise out of him. They're trying to get him to trip up. They're trying to get him to say something wrong. And so far, at least from the little that I've seen so far, because we got into it already started, it seems very much that he's on point right now, and he's on cue here, and he's not letting her really rattle him. I don't think it's gonna be all coronavirus. I don't think it's gonna be all coronavirus, and I don't know. I mean, Trump has been both defensive and offensive. I've seen so far. I mean, because he is pushing back on how ridiculous the questions are, and he's been pushing back on the fact that I did do this, I did do that. Your people said I did something wrong. Things of that nature. So I do think, I don't know, I mean, NBC, CBS, and ABC, no matter what network he's going to be on, it's not going to be a fair shake for him. I can guarantee you that. Well, he's not any different than he usually is, honestly. So there's nothing unusual here. I'm not seeing anything unusual here, but we're back.
Live in Miami.
So let's listen in.
Trump for a town hall. Thank you again, Mr. President. We have another voter now, Christy Alonzo. Come on out, Christy. She is leaning slightly towards you. She says she voted for you in 2016. Christy, you ready? Take the mask off, hold the mic close, and let's hear your question.
Thank you for your service, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
We're a hard-working, middle-class family of four. My husband and I are both self-employed, and we have to get our own individual health care. As you know, the health care costs have gone up considerably over the decades, and you had originally said you were going to repeal and replace Obamacare. What is your plan now in 2020 to make health care costs affordable for Americans like myself?
So we got rid of the individual mandate on Obamacare, which was the worst part of Obamacare, and now you could actually say it's not Obamacare, because that's how big it was, where you had to pay a fortune for the privilege of not having to pay for bad health insurance. So we got rid of that. That was a big, big thing. And by doing that, and we will always have, by the way, we're always protecting people with pre-existing conditions, and I can't say that more strongly. But we've been able to bring health care costs way down. Now, I took over Obamacare, got rid of the individual mandate, made it good, managed it much better. Remember, they had the $5 billion website disaster and all of the problems they had. The problem with Obamacare, it's not good. We'd like to terminate it, and we want a much less expensive health care that's a much better health care, and that's where we're aiming. And if we can do that, and we have a very good chance of doing it, but we've also brought down the price of Obamacare. Problem with Obamacare, it basically is never going to be great. And I want to give great health care.
Mr. President, I got to follow
thank you very
up
much.
on the pre-existing conditions. This is such a big issue for voters.
It is a big issue for me, too.
In point of fact, your administration is about to go to the Supreme Court to argue to throw out the rest of Obamacare, which includes the protections for pre-existing conditions.
That's right.
So your administration is in court right now trying to get rid of that protection.
In order to replace it with a much better health care at a much lower price, and always, under all circumstances, we are going to protect the Republicans. And I mean, maybe I changed the party a lot over the last 3 years, but we will protect people with pre-existing conditions. And Savannah, what I want to do, get rid of the terrible Obamacare. I've already done it to a large extent because, as you know, the individual mandate is gone. That was the worst
You
part.
repealed, but you haven't replaced. Now, you've been in office almost 4 years.
What we have done.
You had both houses of Congress, Senate and House, in Republican hands, and there is not a replacement yet.
That's right. I'm sorry, but if you look, we had both houses, and what did we do? We got rid of the individual mandate.
But
that went through
the
the
promise
legislature.
was repeal and replace.
Look, we should be on the same side. I want it very simple. I'm going to put it very simple. We would like to terminate it, and we would like to replace it with something that's much less expensive and much better. We will always protect people with pre-existing
But if you're
conditions.
successful
And
in
here's the
court
thing.
in November, those pre-existing conditions, that promise will be gone.
If we don't succeed, we are running the remnants of whatever's left because we took it apart. We are running the remnants of whatever is left much better than the previous administration, which ran it very badly. But we'd like to have new health care, much better and much less expensive.
Let me get to question number 5, and you'll like this. He's stuck in traffic. His name is Joe White. He is registered as a Democrat. He says he's leaning toward Biden, and Biden had voted for Hillary Clinton in 2016. And his question was, a second stimulus payment has been broadly agreed upon by the Republicans and Democrats, and yet now we're in October and it's still not passed. Why not use your office to make the second stimulus payment a separate targeted emergency relief package to help Americans weather the pandemic?
Well, we've actually passed 3 packages, and we're on our 4th, and I agree with him 100%. He should vote for me. The problem you have is Nancy Pelosi. She couldn't care less about the worker. She couldn't care less about our people, and we should have a stimulus, and I want a stimulus. The Republicans will approve a stimulus. The problem is she doesn't want to do it because she thinks it's bad for her election. The fact is she's wrong because people know she's in our way. She's not approving it. She doesn't appreciate our people, and she doesn't appreciate at all our workers. Nancy Pelosi, we are ready to sign and pass stimulus, but she's got to
People do not love the back and forth of Washington, but this has been a roller coaster. Back in early October, you one day tweeted, no more negotiations until after Election Day. I'm walking away. Then I think the next couple of days you said maybe we can do something targeted. Then you said I want a big bill, but then Senate Republicans said no, we're not for that. So you're the big deal maker. How come this is so? You yourself have changed positions.
Did you ever hear of a word called negotiation? We're negotiating, okay?
But people's lives are hanging in the balance.
And you know who I'm negotiating against? Nancy Pelosi, because she doesn't want to give the money. We should have stimulus. This was not our people's fault. This was China's fault. And she's penalizing our people. I'm ready to sign a big, beautiful stimulus. You saw the other day, I say, go big or go home, right?
That's what I
want it to be big. I want it to be bold. I want the money to go directly to the people.
Are Senate Republicans with you? They're going to go big?
They'll go.
Big old number?
They'll go. They're going to be very happy.
So far they have not said they would.
Because I haven't asked them to, because I can't get through Nancy Pelosi.
Okay.
If Nancy Pelosi and I, through my representatives or directly, I don't care, if we agree to something, the Republicans will agree to it.
Okay. Our next question comes from, this is interesting. She voted for Clinton in 2016, but recently changed her registration from Democrat to independent. She says she's truly undecided. Her name's Becky Lightman. Hello, Becky. What's your question?
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Nice to see you. Thank you.
Good to see you. So corporate tax rates are a hot button issue, and you have cut corporate tax rates, and your opponent Joe Biden is planning to raise them.
Right.
A lot of Americans think that corporations don't pay their share of taxes and want to see those tax rates increase. Right. What do you say to those Americans to maybe tell them why you want the corporate tax rate lower and why that helps them?
It's a great question. We've created more jobs than this country has ever created. We were up to 160 million jobs. We were never even close to that number We were just hitting 160 million jobs. Companies are pouring into our nation because of the tax rate. And if Biden comes in and raises taxes on everybody, including middle income taxes, which he wants to do, you will blow this thing and you'll end up with a depression, the likes of which you've never had. That's what's going to happen. We have something that's really good. The reason we're coming back so strong is because we built a very strong foundation. Companies are moving in. Car companies are moving into Michigan, into Ohio, into South Carolina and North Carolina just today. So what's happening is they're coming in because we reduced the taxes. Our taxes, our corporate taxes, were the highest in the world, and now they're among the lower taxes. They're not the lowest, but they're among the lowest. And what that means is jobs. But also, we're doing a very big, and we've done a very big middle-income tax package. So if we get in, we're going to do the middle-income tax package. But it's a great question. And if he comes along and raises rates, all those companies that are coming in, they will leave the U.S. so fast your head will spin. We can't let that happen.
On the subject of taxes, as you know, the New York Times has obtained, it says, years of your tax returns. Among other things, it says that you have debts of approximately $421 million that you have personally guaranteed and that will come due in the next 4 years. The question is, on behalf of voters, who do you owe $421 million
First of all,
to?
let me answer. What they did is illegal, number one. Also, the numbers are all wrong with the numbers they released. And just so you understand, when you have a lot of real estate, I have real estate, you know a lot of it, okay? Right down the road, Doral, big stuff, great stuff. I'm very when I decided to run, I'm very under-levered, fortunately, but I'm very under-levered. I have a very, very small percentage of debt compared, in fact, some of it I did as favors to institutions that wanted to loan me money. $400 million compared to the assets that I have, all of these great properties all over the world, and frankly, the Bank of America building in San Francisco. I don't love what's happening to San Francisco.
Well, do I hear you right? It sounds like you're saying $400 million isn't that much.
One of the biggest office buildings.
But are you confirming that, yes, you do owe some $400 million?
What I'm saying is that it's a tiny percentage of my net worth.
That sounds like yes.
And you'll see that soon because we're doing things, you know, we've given, I think it's 108 or 112 pages of financial detail to elections. And, you know, we have to file as the president, as any politician, you have to file. Nobody ever looks at that. When they do, they see how incredible the company is. But more importantly, they see where this debt is. No, I don't owe Russia money. I don't owe. I owe a very, very small. It's called mortgages. Yeah. People have a house. They put a mortgage.
Any foreign bank, any foreign entity?
Not that I know of, but I will probably, because it's so easy to solve. And if you'd like to do, I will let you know who I owe whatever small amount of money. I want to say two things. Number one, it's a very small amount of money. Number two, it's very straight. It's very, very straight. But it's a tiny percentage of the worth. Did you ever hear the expression under-levered?
Yeah.
I am extremely under-levered.
Well, here's the thing. You could clear this up tonight by just releasing your tax returns yourself. I mean, that's what I understand. I think people are just wondering.
As you know,
you're the only.
It turned out that I am under-audited.
They actually says
excuse me. No, but you
the IRS says that doesn't stop you from releasing.
You accused me of not being under-audited previously, and so did other people at NBC, and I am under-audited. So that was solved. That's good. I am under-audited. No person in their right mind would release prior to working out the deal with the IRS. And I'll go a step further. I'm treated very badly by the IRS. They treat me very, very badly. You have people in there from previous administrations. They treat me very badly. But we're under audit. It's very routine in many ways, but we're under audit. They like to change the game, change the rules, do everything. You saw what they did with the Tea Party people. You saw what they did with the religious groups.
But to be clear, there is no law or rule that prohibits you from releasing your tax returns.
Except common sense and intelligence and having lawyers that say, because I would love to release them, and as soon as we come to a conclusion, I will release them, and very gladly. But if you go to elections, and if you take a look, you'll see 112, I think it's 112. It talks about the income, which is rather massive. It talks about all of the properties. They have them listed. You can never learn more. But you know what happened? People went there. All the reporters went there. It was like a feeding frenzy. This was originally when I filed it. And I filed it every year. I update it every year. My son is here. They run the company. I don't run the company.
It also says that you paid
Savannah, let me just tell you.
$750 in taxes in the year you were elected.
Yeah,
is that
that's
true
a
or not?
statutory number. It's a statutory.
But
it's
is
not
that true?
I think it's a filing number. You pay $750. It's a
But is
filing
that
or
all you
filing
paid?
fee.
'Cause most people here probably
No,
paid more.
I don't know. I can tell you this. If they have my tax returns, as you know, they have to go to jail. It's illegal. But their numbers were wrong. But let me tell you what else. I don't owe money to any of these sinister people. This has been going on for years now. Russia, Russia, Russia. It turned out to be a hoax. And it turned out to be that Hillary Clinton and the Democrats were dealing with Russia, not me. It's a whole hoax. So I would not mind at all saying who it is, but it's a very small. When you look at vast properties like I have, and they're big and they're beautiful and they're well located, when you look at that, the amount of money, $400 million, is a peanut. It's extremely underlevered. And it's levered with normal banks. Not a big deal.
All right, let's take a break. We'll get more voter questions right after this.
Okay. Well, while my ears are still bleeding, jeez. God, her voice is just... I already have a headache, too. That's the problem. This is not making it any better. I just wish that she would let him finish a sentence, that's all. Oh, boy. Yeah, the whole tax question is dumb because there has been, like, throughout the entire tax history of Trump, there has been already many revelations that have come out showing that he has paid a lot of taxes. In fact, in many cases, he paid more than, like, the last big reveal from Rachel Maddow, for example, was that he paid more than Obama. And he paid more than the Clintons. So, the fact that they, in fact, what Trump is saying is actually accurate there. The fact that they have his taxes, that is illegal. And then secondly, it's not a full picture. They only cherry-picked a few things, and they're trying to portray this thing. And the article, the New York Times, it was a New York Times article, the way it was written, very confusing, very, like, spaghetti all over the place. They didn't give you a clear indication of what was what were the numbers, what was here, what was there. They just threw out all these different things, peppered it throughout the article in a very non-linear way to make it very difficult to follow. Yeah, they talked about his taxes before the election. I mean, it's the same ridiculous talking points over and over and over and over. Yeah, and you know what? That's a big problem in my view. I believe that reporters should be liable for what they report. They should be liable for the factual content of what they report. They should be held to higher ethical standards. And not only that, even politicians. I do feel that they should be open to liability for what they report. They really should. Mike Wallace would have been sued for one of the reports that he did back in the day. He did this whole report, which was absolute fabrication. You have Dan Rather, who completely fabricated stuff too. Yet these people are still on Twitter. These people are still living their lives without any consequence really to their actions. Except Mike Wallace. Mike Wallace is dead, if I'm not mistaken. So, I don't know. To me, the whole tax issue is a non-issue. Because at the end of the day, if he has a team of accountants, he's made a lot of money, he's paid the taxes he needs to pay, he's used the system. That's the other thing. Let's say he didn't pay a lot of taxes. If he used the laws that are on the books to not pay a lot of taxes, why would I fault him for doing that? I would do the same exact thing. Anybody would. Anybody would. And anybody that tells you otherwise are damn liars. I don't believe them for 1 minute. All right, I think we're starting up again. Here we go.
We are live in Miami in the middle of a town hall with President Trump. Thank being here. We've got another voter, Adam Sugar. He voted for Clinton in 2016. He's registered as a Democrat and says he's supporting Biden. Adam, take it away.
Thank you, Savannah. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Adam.
4 years ago, Senate leadership said it was inappropriate to push through a nominee in an election year. Yet they fast-tracked your nominee for the Supreme Court just today. The question I have for you is, what do you say to the voter that thinks it's hypocritical to act in that manner and that they can't trust Republicans' word?
So when I was elected and when a president is elected, they're elected for a period of 4 years. And Justice Ginsburg said it best, I think talking about President Obama having to do with somebody else, that the president is put there for 4 years, not for 3 years. So during this fourth year, it happened to come up, unfortunately, because I had great respect for Justice Ginsburg, but a vacancy happened to come up, and we picked somebody that's outstanding. She has been an absolute star, and I'm extremely proud of it. But again, plenty of time. I mean, there's plenty of time. We're going to do it before the election, but we also have much time after the election, but there's no reason to wait, because it's almost unanimous, it seems to me, certainly within the Republican Party, and frankly, most of the Democrats within closed rooms. I guarantee you that this is an outstanding person, and I'm using my fourth term. And you know, if you look at it, and if you put the shoe on the other foot, if they had this, they would do it 100%. So there's been 29 times when this has happened. All 29 times, a president has done exactly what I've done.
Can I just, to the voters' point, I'll just say that in 2016, you were on another show, actually another morning show, and you were asked whether President Obama should nominate a Supreme Court Justice Merrick Garland, and you said, I think the Senate should wait until the next president and let the president pick. Now, that was 8 months before the election. This is 3 weeks before the election.
I have a lot of respect, by the way.
So you have changed your position on this.
I have a lot of respect for Judge Garland, I want to tell you that. But I'll tell you, the whole ball game changed when I saw the way they treated Justice Kavanaugh. I have never seen any human being, and I'm not just talking about Supreme Court, I have never seen a human being treated so badly with false accusations and everything else. I have never seen anything like it. And you know what? The truth is, Savannah, like it or not, the ball game changed a lot. There has never been anybody treated so badly as now Justice Kavanaugh.
You've mentioned that you would like to see Amy Coney Barrett confirmed to the Supreme Court in case any challenges come up in connection with the election.
Yeah.
Do you expect her to rule for you?
I think she'll have to make that decision. I don't think she has any conflict at all. You know, a Supreme Court judge does not have, I mean, they can make their own decision. And they actually have additional power to make that decision. It would be totally up to her. I would think that she would be able to rule either for me or against me. I don't see any conflict whatsoever. We have an election coming up. I think it's the most important election in the history of our country. If for any chance, and it probably won't, and I hope it doesn't ever get to the Supreme Court, but if it did, I would think that she would rule one way or the other. I would think so.
But for you think she would rule for you?
I have no idea.
I mean, of course she'll rule one way or the other, but...
Believe it or not, I never asked her about it. I never talked about it. I didn't talk about any of the obvious things that you could talk about. And I think a lot of people in my position might. But in speaking to a lot of very brilliant people and people that do this for a living, they say it's better not to talk. So I talked to her about life. I talked to her about the fact, would you like to do this? Are you willing to do this? Because it's a tremendous burden. The answer was yes. She's unbelievably well qualified, but I never spoke to her about these various questions.
Let's get our next voter. She's leaning to you, Mr. President. She voted for you in 2016. She is a registered Republican. Her name is Mariah Green. Mariah, what's your question?
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President. I'm honored to be with you here tonight, sir, so thank you. I'm a pro-life millennial, and my question for you today is, if Roe v. Wade is ultimately overturned in the future, what protections would be put in place or kept for where the mother's life is in jeopardy in relation to high-risk pregnancies?
Well, again, I'm not ruling on this, and Roe v. Wade is something that a lot of people would say, obviously, you're going to speak to somebody. I also, two other great justices, Justice Gorsuch and Justice Kavanaugh, I never spoke to them about Roe v. Wade. I never spoke to them about election laws. I never spoke to them about anything. And I've done the right thing from a moral standpoint. I don't even know from a legal standpoint, but it was the right thing. I think, depending on what happens with Roe v. Wade, I think that perhaps it could get sent down to the states, and the states would decide. I also think perhaps nothing will happen. I have not talked to her about it. I think it would be inappropriate to talk to her about it. And some people would say you can talk to her about it. I just think it would be inappropriate.
But what is your preference? Because it agreed, that's not something you should talk to the judge about. But would you like to see Roe versus Wade overturned?
I would like to see a brilliant jurist, a brilliant person who has done this in great depth and has actually skirted this issue for a long time, make a decision. And that's why I chose her. I think that she's going to make a great decision. I did not tell her what decision to make, and I think it would be inappropriate to say right now, because I don't want to do anything to influence her. I want her to get approved, and then I want her to go by the law, and I know she's going to make a great decision for our country.
But you running as a pro-life Republican, most pro-life Republicans would like to see Roe v. Wade overturned and abortion banned.
Many of them would.
What do you
Perhaps
think?
most of them would. I am telling you, I don't want to do anything to influence anything right now. I don't want to go out tomorrow and say, oh, he's trying to give her a signal, because I didn't speak to her about it. I've done the right thing in so doing. How she's going to rule, you're going to find out perhaps, or you might not find out. I mean, it may never get there. It may never get there. We'll see what happens.
All right, we have another question. This is Cindy Velez. She is undecided. She says she's leaning to Biden, and she did vote for Clinton in 2016. She's registered as a Democrat. Hi, Cindy. What's your question?
Good evening, Savannah.
Cindy,
Good
thank
evening,
you.
Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
As the mother of a young male of color, I have raised him to respect authority, not only because it's the right thing to do, but also out of fear that he may face profiling or be considered a criminal. As an educator, I've also had similar conversations with my high school students. Mr. President, what will you and your administration do to better prepare our law enforcement officers to work in collaboration with the communities that they serve, and also to protect the lives of innocent Black and Latinos from police brutality and injustice?
Right. I fully understand the question, and I saw everything that you saw over the summer, and it was a terrible thing to watch. We were very strongly, we have a senator named Tim Scott from South Carolina. He came up with a bill that should have been approved. It was great. It was a bill that was strong in terms of law enforcement and strong in terms of enforcing the proper thing and doing the proper thing by law enforcement. And the Democrats just wouldn't go for it. They wouldn't go for it at all. And I don't know why, because it was a really great bill. But I do have to say this. And some people don't like it when I say it, but a lot of people agree. I have done more for the African-American community than any president, with the exception of Abraham Lincoln. Criminal justice reform, prison reform, historically Black colleges and universities. I got them funded. They were on a year-to-year basis. They could have been put out of business. As soon as our country had a little bad year, they would have said, I'm sorry, we're not going to fund you. I got them 10-year funding and financing, and more than they even asked for. I became very friendly with a lot of the heads. But we've done more, and of course, opportunity zones. But criminal justice reform, everybody said it could not be done. President Obama and Biden never even tried to do it. They never even tried. But I say that, and I say it often, I'll say it loud, and I'm very proud of it. And I have a great relationship because of what I've done with the African-American community. I'm very proud of it.
Let's go to our next question. We have Paulette Dale. She leans slightly to Biden. She voted for Clinton in 2016. She's registered as a Republican. Paulette, what's your question?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. President.
Thank you very much.
I have to say, you have a great smile.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, he does. You're so handsome when you smile. Okay. As the daughter of immigrants to the United States who fled Eastern Europe due to religious persecution,
right.
The United States immigration policies are very personal for me.
Right.
Surveys show that most Americans and the majority of Republicans support the Dreamers program. So my question for you, Mr. President, is if you are elected to a second term, do you expect to pursue your previous efforts to cut the DACA program?
Yeah.
Why or why not?
And the DACA is somewhat different than Dreamers. You understand that, and you understand it better than anybody probably in this room. Where do you come from, by the way, originally? Where?
My grandparents were from Russia and Poland.
That's very good. Okay. So we are going to take care of DACA. We're going to take care of Dreamer. It's working right now. We're negotiating different aspects of immigration and immigration law. We've built now over 400 miles of border wall, southern border. Mexico's working very closely with us. We have the strongest border we've ever had. We want people to come into our country. They have to come in legally. But we are working very hard on the DACA program, and you will be, I think, very happy over the course of the next year.
Thank you.
Because I feel the same way as you do about it.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
President.
you. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, in point of fact, the DACA program, there are, under your administration, no new applicants are allowed. And in fact, the DACA recipients now have to renew every year as opposed to every 2 years. So in fact, the DACA program has been curtailed by your administration.
Well, what happened is because of the pandemic, much changed on the immigration front. Mexico is heavily infected, as you know, and we've made it very, very difficult to come in because of the pandemic and other reasons, and crime. But we have a very strong border right now, and we have to keep it that way. But we want people to come into our country, but they have to come in through a merit system, and they have to come in legally. And people are very, very happy with it. You haven't heard any complaints about that. But what happened is because of the pandemic, we have to be extra cautious.
You have been promising this immigration bill since, well, at least July, when you told my colleague on Telemundo it was coming, but nothing's come yet.
It's very happy. The fact is, we got rid of catch and release, which is a disaster. You know, you catch somebody, they could be a murderer, they could be a rapist, and we're supposed to release them into our country. These are the laws that I inherited. We ended that program. Now, I think you're going to see something very, very good. The whole immigration, if you look at what's going on, people used to pour into our country, and especially during the pandemic. I think even you, Savannah, will be very impressed.
Sir, we have about 30 seconds left. I think about people sitting out there tonight. There are some who love you. Some of them are sitting right around here, and some who will never vote for you. But there are people in the middle. There are people who aren't sure.
That's right.
There are people who want to know why they should give you a second chance and how you might improve in a second term. 30 seconds, what would you say to them?
Because I've done a great job. We had the strongest economy in the world. We closed it up. We are coming around the corner. The vaccines are coming out soon, and our economy is strong. We are at a level with jobs like we've never been before. We've rebuilt our military. We've rebuilt our borders. We had no borders. We had no nothing. We've rebuilt so much. We've given you the greatest tax cut in the history of our country, greatest regulation cut, equally as important, and we created new levels of jobs that nobody thought was possible. And next year is going to be better than ever before.
I got to leave it there. I got a wrap from the control room. Mr. President, thank you for your time. Thank you for listening to the voters' questions. That concludes our town hall. We do want to thank the president again, as well as our audience in hot Miami and all of you watching at home. And a reminder, Donald Trump and Joe Biden are scheduled to meet in person a week from tonight in Nashville, a second and final presidential debate moderated by our own Kristen Welker. Have a good evening, and thanks for being with us.
Wow. Well, that's it. Hold on one second. Let me just all right. Let me just make sure this is removed here. Get rid of that. Well, that's the stream, kids. Have a good night. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. Crap, I thought it was at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I apologize, kids. I thought it was going to start later. Goodness. Well, I missed some of it. We can talk about what we saw, and we'll talk about news items of the day, because there is plenty, plenty to talk about. Oh, my God. Goodness me. Where to even begin? But let's just talk a little bit about the town hall first. So, from what I saw, here. It's Trump. I'm not really seeing anything like bad in the sense that he didn't underperform or perform poorly. He performed pretty much as much I would expect Trump to perform. He answered the questions. He was straightforward. He didn't let the moderator walk all over him. The one thing that I would just say is maybe there are a couple questions where, see, this is the thing with Trump. I understand his method of speaking. I understand his method of responding to these answers and all this kind of stuff. Sometimes I feel that there are ways for him to answer that maybe he could shut down things in a slightly different and more decisive way. Or at least bring the question around in a way that makes it so the moderator can't really rebut. You want another debate right now? Well, this is what we got. I do want to have another debate. I don't like the fact that a debate didn't happen. That's not cool in my book. Hey, Runer, welcome to the stream. Well, it was just, I guess it was a debate. It was a debate between the moderator at the town hall and Trump. No, I don't think that she did a good job. Savannah Guthrie really did a poor job in being a moderator for the town hall. I mean, as much as I don't like Anderson Cooper, one thing that I can say about Anderson Cooper is that he did a town hall with Trump, and he had a good time with it. He wasn't adversarial. He pushed back on a few things. He asked questions. He had a good conversation. And I think that goes to show you a little bit the difference between the kind of reporter that Anderson Cooper can be in a situation of a town hall versus someone like Savannah Guthrie. I think she did a horrible job. I don't think this necessarily did anything for independence, to be honest with you. I think that he answered his questions well. I think that he addressed issues relatively well. I do feel that he didn't. I don't really think that the question. This is the problem too, Soldat. The questions are not really geared in a way that can help an independent really gain any more insight into what they already know about the candidate. I think that's really the crux of the problem here. Because all these people are interested in doing is they're trying to fight with Trump. They're trying to pick a fight with him. They're trying to argue with him. They're trying to debate with him. They're not really trying to inform people. See, to me, if you're willing to inform people, whether you agree with the person or not, you could ask questions. You could ask questions that provide a little bit more of a in-depth insight instead of turning it into a shouting match and turning it into, because this is the problem. You turn it in, you have a limited amount of time, and then you start going into this debate, you're wasting time. So then when he has to answer actual questions by people or actual better questions, he has less time, he has to rush through it. It's a very disgusting tactic if it's an intentional way of handling the town hall to make it harder for him to answer or give him less time to actually address issues, or at the same time it's just poor managing of a town hall. It's either intentional, malicious, or it's unintentional, and it's just incompetence. So I think overall it was a typical Trump performance. I don't think it was bad. I don't think it was good. Did it hurt him? No. Did it help him? Probably not. I don't think so. I don't think it really pushed the needle one way or the other. Biden is going to get a bunch of softballs. I seen online though. This is the thing. Some tweets that are talking about him having a temper. So I think maybe they're asking him a couple questions in the Biden town hall that must have pissed him off. So I'm gonna have to look deeper into that. We can talk about it more tomorrow. But my overall take is going to be that I think overall Trump did the Trump thing when it comes to debates, town halls, things like that. He answered the questions. He got his answers down. He was very forceful on a couple answers, which I felt were good. I mean, this whole white supremacist thing he needed to mock her for it, which he did, and he did a good job on that, in my opinion. See, I don't know if that's necessarily the case because there's a lot of distrust in the media, Soldat. That's the thing. So I do think that it turns into a who would you rather believe? A news media that has been, especially after what happened yesterday. Shalom, hetero alpha god. Welcome to the stream, sir. See, the problem with the news media, with the mainstream media, is that they have been notoriously dishonest. And because they have been notoriously dishonest, when you look at a situation like that, even if I didn't like Trump and I didn't like whoever the media is talking to, sup, friend, how you doing? See, I think there's distrust all across the board, though, Soldat. There is distrust all across the board. Conservatives distrust the news media far more than non-conservatives. But even amongst independents and liberals, there is distrust amongst the media. That's the problem. So when you see things that happen like yesterday, where the New York Post posts an article, right? And they talk about Hunter Biden's corruption and Joe Biden's corruption because there's a leaked emails, basically. Because what happened was, apparently, Hunter Biden had a Mac laptop that was put into some sort of repair. This repair shop had it. He never paid it. He never picked it up. So the guy handed it over to he gained possession of it legally. And so once he gains possession of it legally, he can access it. He accessed it, looked at the contents, and saw there were a bunch of emails from Hunter Biden, a bunch of inappropriate and sexually explicit and illegal things photographed. He handed it over to the FBI. The FBI has been sitting on this since December of 2019. What have they been doing with it? I don't know. I don't know. Well, the thing is, see, that the dishonesty of the mainstream media was actually put in great highlight yesterday and today because most media outlets are ignoring it. And what happened yesterday with this news story really highlights the fact of how horrible. Yeah, I've seen the pictures. Soldat. So, to me, it really highlights how bad the mainstream media is and how bad tech tyranny really is. Because you had a legitimate article raising questions about alleged leaked emails and photos. I mean, the photos were legitimate. The emails were legitimate. The Biden campaign is not even disputing the legitimacy of the emails. They're just saying it's a non-story. They're saying there was nothing wrong there. There's no corruption there. But they're not disputing the legitimacy of the emails. They're not disputing the legitimacy of the photos. So, and they're saying, well, there wasn't any meeting on any official memos because basically Hunter was basically brokering access to his father, and who was vice president at the time. Using that influence, he was making money. So this is basically a quid pro quo, selling access. This is exactly everything that they have accused Trump of doing. and they impeached him for it. The Democrats have tried to impeach Donald Trump for what Joe Biden did. Can you imagine if there was actual evidence, of Don Jr. smoking a crack pipe and selling access to his father in a political position like president or vice president, because Trump is president? Can you imagine the media shit show that would be happening right now if it was Don Jr. and Donald Trump? People's hair would be on fire. They would be shrill shrieking from the rooftops. There would be calls for crucifixion. I mean, really? Really? It is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous how the media has been handling this. On top of this, what is worse in my view is what Twitter did. So what did Twitter do? Twitter decided, and Facebook too, Zuckerberg is just as responsible as Jack Dorsey in this one. Well, yeah, the emails are incredibly damning. And there is a lot more that's coming out, apparently. Tucker Carlson did a show tonight talking about how they had more emails, and there's more coming out. So this thing is not over, apparently, okay? But let's not get into that just yet. What happened was the New York Post posted this article out. The communications person at Facebook, which apparently worked with Kamala Harris, but let's not even talk about that, okay? He said on Twitter and on Facebook too, I guess, that they were going to limit the distribution of this article because it needs to be fact-checked. So before even saying whether it was true or not, if this was a fake news item or a non-fake news item, they decided they were gonna reduce the distribution of this before even any fact-checking got into place. So they didn't know if this was true or not, but they were like, "Oh, this is gonna hurt Biden. We're gonna shut it down." And that's what they did. They blocked it and banned it on Facebook. Twitter did the same thing. Twitter started suspending accounts that were sharing it under the guise of that you're distributing leaked information, which is bullcrap. And then on top of that, they were talking about how it's misleading. They blocked New York Post, a over 100-year-old publication, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they called it hacked material. It was absolute bullshit. It was absolute crap. Absolute crap. On top of that, when people like, I don't know, the Judiciary Committee of the House, was it? The Republican Judiciary Committee? No, the Senate Judiciary Committee. Was it one or the other? They posted that on their website. They posted an article about this, and then they linked. They didn't even have the content of the articles in that page. They had created a page. They had linked the article in the page. Twitter blocks an official government communication. It was the Senate. Yes, it was the Senate. Thank you, Soldat. They block an official government communication. Let that sink in for a moment. Let that sink in for just a moment that a tech company took it upon themselves to censor the United States government in an official communique. On top of that, let's keep going with this. They suspend the official Trump campaign Twitter account. And then they also suspend a bunch of other Trump-related accounts. This is ludicrous. Ridiculous. ridiculous. And what happens? Nothing. Jack comes out, Jack Dorsey, saying, oh, this was just handled poorly. We didn't communicate this properly. No. This isn't a matter of communication, because if your issue is that unsubstantiated news or hacked materials should not be on your platform, then why did you not do the same with the Trump tax return article from the New York Times? You didn't do that, Jack. You know why? Because you're an asshole. That's why. Okay? This is... I don't even have words to express my rage at this right now. And then you have Ted Cruz coming out saying, oh, I'm going to give him a subpoena so Jack has to come in and explain himself. Oh, gee, I'm sure he's trembling at that. I'm sure Jack is shaking in his little booties over a congressional, like a Senate subpoena. A congressional subpoena. Ooh. Come on. Can we just stop with this nonsense for once? Listen, I'm not a guy who doesn't like Ted Cruz. You know, I think Ted Cruz is doing what I think is in his capacity of doing as a senator. Okay? I have nothing wrong with him subpoenaing Jack Dorsey to explain himself. But can we just stop with this talk, subpoena, and bullshit for once in our lives? Let's remove these damn protections, or just sue the pants off of Twitter once and for all. Well, at least he is trying to do something. I will give Ted Cruz credit for that. I'll give him credit for that. But it's ridiculous that these platforms, and Google was doing the same thing too, actually. Let's not forget Google. Google was out there manipulating the search results so people couldn't see the article. So Google is not innocent in this. Facebook is definitely guilty. Twitter is definitely guilty. Google, like I said, has its responsibility. This is direct election interference at this point. This is direct election interference. I'm getting mad. I am getting mad, Trainwave. I don't know what might come out of my mouth. That's the fun of the stream. I could say anything. But the point is, to me, I'm getting really freaking tired of this crap. I'm getting tired of senators just talking. I'm getting tired of Congress representatives just talking. They've been talking about Russian bullshit for 3 years. And it turns out Biden is the one that did this. They're talking about impeachment over Ukraine dealings. Turned out Biden did that. All the news media outlets were putting out all this hoax and all this garbage over the taxes. And there's nothing there. No, I've been tired for a long time, but this is yet another hair on the camel's back that just keeps breaking this back over and over again. And the problem with someone like myself is like we feel powerless in this situation. We feel absolutely powerless in this situation. What are we to do? We're at the beck and call here. We're at the mercy of senators whose plan to action is, let's do a Senate subpoena and bring him in for a congressional hearing. Gee, thank you. You know, that just made it all better. I mean, I don't even know what to think anymore at this point. Because it would seem to me that I don't know what agencies need to get involved here at this point. To like, I don't even know if it's the FBI, CNA, the board for the elections. I don't even know what's going on here at this point. Wouldn't this be considered a threat domestic? Abyss likes his pills like he likes his coffee. Black. Yes. No, this is getting really frustrating for someone like myself because I want to see some hope here. I want to see some accountability. Why can't Congress make it so people are accountable for their actions? I really do think that the FBI is and the Department of Justice are absolutely dropping the ball on all this. Absolutely dropping the ball. No, Alt-Right. No, it's not a call to action, sir. I don't radicalize, I rationalize. Remember that. But if there is going to be a call to action, the call to action that I would Abyss Boogaloo. The Abyss Boogaloo. Boogal Abyss? I don't know. No. The only call to action that I say is go and speak to your representatives. Call your representatives. Go there and demand action. Tell them you need to work on making all these things happen. Term limits for you people, for you senators and you representatives, we need term limits. For the news media, remove any protections. Remove protections from the news media that allows them to lie. Make them liable for everything that they say and everything that they print. Make platforms like Twitter that are editorializing. I can't talk anymore. Make them liable as well. Remove the 230 protections from platforms that are not really platforms. Make platforms earn the 230 protection. It shouldn't just be given automatically because you claim to be a platform. Prove it. Twitter needs to prove that they deserve that protection to not be sued for what's on their servers, on their platform. They have to prove it. Because if they are just an open platform where people can say whatever the hell they want, then so be it. But if you're going to editorialize the content on your platform, then guess what? You're going to be responsible for it. Well, Dispatch, you once complained to me about not wanting to do extra work, so... Well, in the case of Twitter, Dispatch, in the case of Twitter and Facebook, it's pretty clear. The proof is in the pudding that those platforms are not open platforms. I mean, Facebook themselves, Mark Zuckerberg himself said that Facebook is a platform in a congressional hearing. He said so himself. So why are we pretending, for example, that Facebook is still an open platform? So to me, it's a matter of if you're gonna claim open platform, which Twitter has claimed and Facebook has claimed, even though Facebook in a congressional hearing said they're not an open platform, but they're a publisher. Sorry, I'm just reading chat. Well, I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to prove anything. Because Twitter, in the case of Twitter, Twitter has made it already clear that they're editorializing. It's not a matter of letting people say what they want to say. I am all for free speech. I don't care what people say on a platform, which is why I don't care what most people say in my chat, for example. I don't act like a janitor here. I'm not a Janny for my chat. I'm not a moderator for my chat. When I stream on Bitwave here, I let Bitwave say whatever the hell they want. It doesn't bother me one way or the other. But if, let's say, I created my own version of Bitwave and I called it Abyss Wave, okay? And then I had people chatting on there, and I had very strict rules about what you could say and you not say, and I editorialized every single thing that people say. Then there's a problem there, because now it's not an open platform anymore. It's not an open square of discussion as I claim. Illustrator, you're right. The cure for bad speech is good speech. But AOL Abyss Online, I loved AOL coasters. I loved it when they gave me, those free coasters for my drinks. I love that. No, but what I'm saying is, if I had a platform and I say this is an open platform, but I'm really editorializing and acting as a publisher, then guess what? It's not an open platform anymore. I got coffee. Thank you. Thank you for the coffee. Much appreciated. But if I say this is an open platform and I say whatever the hell you want, do whatever you want, as long as you follow like the law, which the law, you can't incite violence because that's not protected by the First Amendment. Well, there's a different, and that's what I mean, Dispatch. Well, there's a difference between making sure your platform is orderly versus editorializing people. I think there is a difference. Exactly, Troll FHZ7. You can say whatever the hell you want. Doesn't bother me. I'm everybody's friend. No, but I mean, I see your point, Dispatch, as someone who has a platform. As someone like myself, I'm a developer as well. I have projects that I'm working on that would involve a social aspect to it, and I am perfectly okay with putting in rules to follow laws. That is the restrictions that I would put into any platform. Like, you can't incite violence. And you can't, hack people and get their information and put private information on a platform. That's different. I think it's a pretty clear line. Actually. Because, no, I'm not designing Float. Maybe I can help them out. I don't know if they want me to help them out. Maybe I could. No, there is a pretty clear line. Because there's a difference between saying, these are some basic rules for conduct to make sure that people act professional. But when you decide, you know what, I don't like your opinion on hamsters, Dispatch. So if you say anything about hamsters, I'm just going to block you and censor you. I don't think that is appropriate. If the laws say I cannot incite violence or I cannot put child pornography on a platform, I don't think it's a problem for a platform to have in their rules, you can't put child pornography in our forums or you can't incite violence. This is a pro-hamster site. Well, but what if I just disagree with you, saying, you know what, I don't believe that this is a pro-hamster site, and if I start running Bitwave, I'm going to ban all hamster chat. and all the hamster emotes are gone. I don't think that's to me, there's a level of what is reasonable, what is unreasonable. In the law, there's this concept of the reasonable stick person. And what that reasonable stick person concept is that if you propose some issue or some problem, you try to take it from a perspective from your average reasonable individual. Abyss Wave, do whatever you want, the hell you want with hamsters. So, I don't know. See, to me, I feel that there is because that concept exists in the law. I find that a concept of that kind could be applied to platforms of that kind. Can a reasonable person look at the rules and the terms of service of a platform and say, is this an open platform or is this a publisher? And that's where you would have to make a decision. Like, someone can look at Bitwave well, that is editorializing to an extent. If you claim that your platform is an open platform, let's put it this way, Dispatch. Let's put it this way. You create a new website that is called Hamster Wave. Your entire website revolves around hamsters. And hamsters alone. And the terms of service says, this is a hamster-only discussion forum. If you talk about anything else, we're going to take you off the platform. Okay? So from the conception of your platform, of Hamster Wave, then you made it clear from the beginning that this is a platform for only a certain type of conversation. There's no room for interpretation. There's no doubt. There's no gray areas. So you can editorialize and you can Janny that conversation as much as you want. Because if I come in and I start talking about Huskies, you can say, no. This is a forum strictly about hamsters. You cannot talk about Huskies. You have to take it over to Huskies Wave instead of Hamster Wave. But instead, if you have a platform like you have here, then you say this is an open platform of free speech according to how it's defined by the American law system here, by the Constitution and by the Supreme Court. Then if you say this is an open platform, a free speech friendly platform where everybody can express their opinions and you're not going to be punished for it, you can't then go and start being a janitor when someone says an opinion you don't like. Because the premise of your platform was that it's supposed to be open. Well, if that's the platform, if your platform is a pro-gerbil and hamster platform, then you can make it only about that. A perfect example of this. Is there a while ago there used to be this website, and it still exists, I'm pretty sure. Curation isn't publishing. Yeah, that is true. There is a difference between curating your content and being a publisher. If you just want high quality content, then that's one thing. Oh, geez, spooks. But basically what it boils down to is like the example that I was giving. There's this website that was a Dungeons & Dragons website where it was just all forums. You could create your own Dungeons & Dragons campaign. You could have people play with all text-based. And you just keep posting, create characters, it creates like character sheets, all this kind of stuff. It was all about Dungeons & Dragons. And they made it clear that any thread, any conversation, anything that you did had to be about Dungeons and Dragons. It had to be, the campaign threads had to be about a campaign. The character threads had to be about characters. The ideas thread had to be about ideas. Looking for players had to be in the looking for players sections. Looking for dungeon masters had to be in the dungeon masters section. So the website was very particular about what kind of content you could put on there. Now, I wouldn't say that they're being a publisher. And I wouldn't say that they're editorializing their platform. I would say they made it very clear that their platform is this narrow band of content that we want to talk about. This is the topic of this. And this is what it is. It's kind of like watching a TV show like ESPN. It's all about, well, it's supposed to be about sports. Or Cartoon Network, which is supposed to be about cartoons. Or a Food Network, it's supposed to be about food. Well, you know, actually, that D&D website was pretty fun. I admit I went on there quite a while ago. I was a D&D nerd. I will admit that. So you have okay, let's see what Dispatch is saying here. So, okay, Abyss, now I have a platform that allows you to curate a community around a central idea. It gives you the power to establish your own rule set for what is published in your chat room. Who's at fault for Sammy's death threats to Mando's gerbil now? Well, again, death threats are not covered under free speech. So any platform, any open platform that allows for death threats, you're making yourself liable, period. Because you should not be allowing death threats to be put onto your platform. Let's see. What is question C talking about? Hold on. I think I missed what question C was asking. How familiar am I with the idea of platform federation? I've heard of it. I don't know all the details about that. It's kind of like isn't it kind of like the same concept of cryptocurrency, but in a more content related way? I could be wrong on that. No. Death threat wave would be nothing but death threats. Well, according to Twitter's terms of service, it's not okay to do a death threat. Except if you're liberal. I guess if you're liberal, it's okay to do a death threat. How am I with voice chats? What do you mean, how am I with voice chats? I'm not sure I follow, Jackie Poopy Pants. Okay, Dispatch says, okay, now you've increased your channel's rule set to include negative speech about hamsters. You punish and ban users who dislike hamsters. Is this editorializing? The platform allows all, but you have established your own rule set that extends into what you call editorializing. Well, that's the thing. If my subject matter is hamsters, good or bad, I have to allow all. If my platform is about positive speech about hamsters, that I don't allow any sort of negative speech on hamsters, it's pretty clear from the get-go what I'm talking about. See, this is a difference between being an open platform and a closed platform. What we're discussing when you're talking about a hamster-friendly site is a closed platform. The Dungeons and Dragons sites, it's a closed platform. It has a finite set of what you are accepting as speech on your platform. The eye doctor, why are you feeling down, man? Everything will be good. Well, see, you're changing the parameters here. You can't always change the parameters. You have to draw a line somewhere. And this is what I'm talking about. When you have platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Google that have a large, humongous influence on how people get their news, well, then the editorializing needs to be down to the section. The platform itself cannot just editorialize willy-nilly. It would have to be down to the specific sections where the specific sections can editorialize that kind of content. But if you have a section of that platform that is open, then that open section needs to stay open. You can't use the open section as a closed section or a finite section. That's where the lines get crossed. Because if you're gonna come to me like Jack Dorsey or Mike Zuckerberg and say, we are an open platform, you can say whatever you want, you can share whatever you want, you can connect with people in whichever way you like, but oh wait, we don't like this news item, you can't share that. We're gonna ban you because you decided to use a link of a place that we don't like. Then you're not an open platform. Well, no, I'm not saying it's a one-size-fits-all solution, but I do think that certain platforms do need to be liable for the content that they put on their websites when they claim to be an open platform, but they're openly discriminating against people. And they're censoring governments, and they're interfering with elections. When your platform has such an influence to the point where you're actually you're influencing people's lives, you're influencing policy, you're influencing governments, world economies, you have to acknowledge that a line needs to be drawn somewhere, and you need to find a best fit of a solution. It's not going to be a perfect solution, but it can be a best fit for a solution. And that if you want to be a truly open platform, then you have to abide by certain reasonable expectations of what an open platform is supposed to be. But if you want to act as a publisher, you want to editorialize, you want to influence people's opinions, then guess what? You can't be an open platform anymore at that point. You just can't. It doesn't make any sense. I think that is about 2.5 million followers until you can unlock economy manipulation. I don't know. I do figure, Jack Poopy Pants, you do raise an interesting point where there is a lot of bed sharing. There's a lot of intermingling and bed sharing amongst elites. That is true. I don't know how all these companies and governments intertwine with each other. So there is some of that where you're gonna have governments and companies and people basically sharing the same bed, and there's gonna be a lot of influence back and forth. I mean, just look at how Google and all these tech companies are giving money to the Democrats. I mean, obviously they're acting as PACs, for example. Oh, everybody should waste time listening to me, in my opinion. I think I have interesting takes. My milquetoast takes are my charm. Well, and that's a legitimate concern, Dispatch. That's a legitimate concern, and what I would suggest is that's why you need to bring in carving out those lines. You need to bring in small platforms, you need to bring in large platforms, and you need to bring in everybody on the table to carve out a proper carve out to ensure that you're not negatively impacting smaller platforms. I don't want more. Jesus Christ. That scared the bejesus out of me. Holy crap. Marcus DP, thank you for the follow, sir. You just scared the ever-living snot out of me, by the way. Oh, woo! I think I just lost a couple years off my life on that one. Oh lordy, I didn't even have my volume on, so only I heard that. I just sounded like a complete doofus. Thank you. And oh my god. Not quite. I was almost there, Illustrator. I almost did. They're still clean. Don't worry. No, but what I was saying is that's why I'm saying I don't want more regulation. I'm actually not advocating for regulation. What I'm asking for is just liability. Right now, the problem isn't regulation. I don't think the government needs to regulate corporations more. And tech companies. I think that companies need to have less protections. I think reporters need less protections. I think politicians need less protections. Politicians need to be liable for their actions. When they make a decision that results in the death of someone in Chaz, for example, like Mayor Jenny, the Summer of Love, Mayor Jenny, then she needs to be held criminally or civilly liable for her actions. Reporters that print fake stories about people, why do you think CNN had to settle with Nick Sandman? Because someone put their feet to the fire. They held them liable for the character assassination that they did to that minor, to that child. That is that's my argument. I don't want more protections for companies. I don't want all these rules and regulations. I like the internet the way it was. I like the internet being open. I like giving people more freedoms. But with those freedoms, though, comes it's kind of like the Spider-Man thing. With great power comes great responsibility. You can be free to do just about everything you want in my book, but you have to be responsible for your actions. That's where my stance is, really. I think that you don't need to have a lot of regulations. If people are liable for everything that they do and say, guess what? People will check themselves to a certain extent. I don't agree with that dispatch. I don't think it needs that much regulation. I don't know if it needs that much regulation, to be honest with you. And I don't know if it needs to be treated as a utility, maybe. But the only thing for me is that it's that the more regulation you put on, the more problems you're going to get. It's better to not have a lot of regulation. Yeah, but with more see, on one side, you are complaining about me regulating small and big things that wouldn't fit. And now you're saying you should have more regulation, though. You can't have it both ways, Dispatch. I think maybe treating the internet as a utility might be a good way to go, in the sense that, you could say whatever you want on a phone line. Technically speaking, I mean, the phone company won't listen in on your conversation and say, "Wait, you're talking about soufflés? I hate soufflés. You can't talk about soufflés." Click. So to that extent, I do agree that the internet should maybe be treated that way, as a utility, where but the thing is this: the internet kind of already is being treated that way. Your ISP does not really come to you and say, "Oh, wait a minute, you're a Democrat? No, I'm a conservative ISP. I'm not going to allow you to get onto the internet." If you pay the utility for the internet, you get on there. The internet itself is not really the problem. It's individual platforms on the internet. Well, the competition for ISPs and pricing, and that's a different issue. That is, to me, that is a different issue. I'm talking if you can access the internet, your politics, your religion, your beliefs, your ethnic background, your culture, the country that you're in, doesn't really have a major impact on you checking your email or going onto a website. So in a sense, when you're talking about treating the internet as a utility, I make a distinction between that issue of accessibility, because there is a problem with accessibility out in rural areas. But that was all bullshit anyways, because that didn't even happen. That didn't even happen at all, Dispatch. That was a talking point for net neutrality, which would have created so many layers of regulations, it would have destroyed the internet. This whole concept of net neutrality was bullshit to begin with, which is why it's been removed. They were trying to scare people into over-regulating the internet and turning it into government control. Under Obama, actually, Obama released a lot of control of the internet to foreign powers in Europe, for example. We had a lot more control of the internet in the United States with hubs and nodes and with ISPs in the United States before Obama. Obama came along and he completely screwed that one up. When did Netflix do that? I don't recall Netflix really doing that at all. Hey, thanks for the diamond, Marcus. Marcus DP, much appreciated. Thank you for the diamond. The argument for net neutrality was to prevent fast lanes from happening. That was the argument for net neutrality, because they were saying without net neutrality, ISPs can have a fast lane for people who pay more and slow lane for people who pay less. But ISPs never really did that, because they were going to say there is going to be a two-tier internet, one for corporations and people like Netflix and streaming services where you can have faster connections, versus the plebs that would just check their emails and have a lower connection. Instead, the internet, since its inception until present day, has always functioned on the model of, not really. You pay for the streaming service, you get the streaming service from Netflix. They don't affect, Netflix has no power over speed, in a sense. The only thing that Netflix has a power on... Okay, but still, that doesn't really make a big difference at the end of the day, because at the end of the day, if I'm paying for 1 gigabit download or fiber, it's always going to be down to like what I'm paying for my internet service. Yeah, but that's an iffy foundation for that sort of argument in my book, because really the ISPs, a company can rent servers everywhere. Do you know how many companies use Google servers for their services? How many apps use Google servers? So I don't know if that's necessarily a sound argument for the argument of net neutrality. I think what's more important when it comes to internet is that you just keep internet service providers as they are. If services and platforms want to use local infrastructure to enhance their services, they can do so. But if you're going to provide those extra services, well, no, I mean, with the shared internet, yeah, it's going to be different. The thing is this. Well, I pay for different internet service rates depending on the location that I'm at. If I'm in Texas, I pay one thing. If I'm in Florida, I pay another thing. If I'm in California, I pay another thing. It boils down to the companies on the ground, their infrastructure, what packages they offer, how many clients they offer services to. There's a lot of factors that play into that. So, to me, what it really boils down to is, I mean, we've gone down quite a rabbit hole here talking about net neutrality. That really isn't the issue here. The issue when it comes to net neutrality is that if you have an internet service provider and you pay $20 for it and you increase that according to how much speed you want, there's nothing to me inherently unfair about that, because this is what you're paying for. It was the same with the phone service. You wanted long distance services, you had to pay for long distance service. You wanted group calling, you had to pay for group calling. The more features you want, the more you pay. Okay, back to hamster speech. All right. I am not calling for violence. Stop that. I rationalize. I don't radicalize. No, really, what it boils down to is this. Like I said before, when it comes to platforms like Twitter and Facebook and Google, I'm not. Hamster lives matter, of course they do. I'm not looking for more regulation. I really don't want government involved in platforms. I don't want government involved in creating extra laws and all this sort of thing, because you have these companies that are causing issues. Well, if T-Mobile wants to offer that, they can offer that. I don't see why that's a problem. The hamster boys. Well, that's why I'm glad net neutrality got shut down, because I don't want government involvement. Sorry, drinking some fluids here. My throat's getting a little dry. Yeah, I wouldn't think T-Mobile could. Because if T-Mobile has to abide by all these regulations that you can't offer special things, then all of a sudden, T-Mobile can't offer these special little promotions. Or Verizon giving access to Hulu for a year. Or Verizon or AT&T. AT&T was giving access to like Apple TV for a year, wasn't it? Something like that? I don't know. I don't even remember. But the point is, if you have all these regulations in place that forces people to act in a certain way, first of all, T-Mobile stinks, by the way. I'm just gonna come out and just say that. T-Mobile is garbage. To me, the point is, overregulation always increased costs for businesses to run. if you're going to have to regulate a business, if you're going to have to do regulations for a business, they have to be minimal, they have to be reasonable, they have to be useful. I did not say that. Though I had very bad experiences with T-Mobile. Well, they may be able to offer that, but guess what? You know what? If I was a small mom and pop hamburger shop and McDonald's wanted to offer this fantastic deal on you can get 20 hamburgers for $2. There's no way I can compete with that as a small mom and pop hamburger shop. So now you can't have fast food restaurants just because they are bigger and they have an opportunity to offer these kind of services? That's the free market. Well, it may create an unfair marketplace, but it may not, because while T-Mobile can offer that, you as a smaller streaming service may be able to offer a different type of service, something more niche that T-Mobile can never really deliver to their customers. If you want to be a second T-Mobile, then that's going to be more problematic when you're small, for sure. But if you want to grow and you want to provide something different, it's kind of like, since you brought up Twitch, it's kind of like Twitch versus YouTube. Guess what? Twitch has created its entire gigantic market for game streaming. No, I understand your point, but the point is that just because you as a smaller platform cannot compete with a larger platform, the issue of a monopoly is not the same as being able to provide services. Yeah, but it's not free. It seems free to you because you're getting it through a paid service to T-Mobile. They're throwing that in to sweeten the pot. Vertical monopolies are bad? In what sense exactly? I want to make sure I understand your question. Like, what do you mean exactly by a vertical monopoly? It's not free. It's not free. Netflix and T-Mobile got into a contract to allow that. T-Mobile's paying Netflix. Or Netflix is paying T-Mobile to do, like, there's some benefit to both. Like a vertical supply chain. Well, see, there's already antitrust laws on the book, and there's already anti-monopoly laws on the book. So the question then becomes, why can't we just use what we already have on the books if you want to prevent a monopoly, and you want to prevent and you want to deal with antitrust issues? It's not free. I can promise you it's not free, because they got into some sort of contract with Netflix because they're going to make more money getting more customers, so they pay Netflix, and Netflix offers them that for free, to use their services for free, because they allow T-Mobile customers to do that. It's like when if I use a cable company, if I sign up with a cable television company, they give me access to apps to watch sports, which otherwise I would have to pay separately. I think it can be a good thing to get into these partnerships. Can it become unreasonable in terms of a monopoly? Can it skew the markets? Sure. Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. But the markets are not a perpetual static thing, though. I understand that concern, Dispatch, and it's a legitimate concern. I'm absolutely not dismissing that as a concern. I understand the concern. I think it makes sense. And I think that the current laws that we have on the books preventing monopolies and antitrust laws, things of that nature, can be used to ensure that the market is balanced. And I think you can make laws to prevent that sort of thing without having to over-regulate industry and over-regulate markets and over-regulate businesses. So that's my thought process on that. I don't really think that over-regulation is really required for that. Well, the market, listen, you're never going to have a fully balanced market. The markets, there's always going to be some areas of the free market in all industries. You're always going to have some imbalances here and there. I can promise you that many markets, especially on the internet right now, because of unethical practices like Google. I mean, these unethical practices in the tech world started with Microsoft, to be honest. There are a lot of problems that happen with computer companies back in the day. And I believe that the free market does have a self-adjusting ability to it, because the free market does allow for some balancing acts to happen in terms of supply, demand, technology, shifting sensibilities of consumers, things of that nature. There's a lot of moving parts to the market, which is why I think less manipulation in it may be a good thing, and you let the market kind of deal with itself to an extent. Yeah, free markets have given us what we have now, so I wouldn't necessarily mess with that too much. What I would just suggest is if people are concerned about those balances, then I think it's good to have some things put in place where you can't abuse the market so much that it creates such an imbalance. And like I said, we already have some of this stuff on the books. Anti-monopoly legislation already exists. Antitrust legislation already exists. It just needs to be updated a little bit to encompass what's happening with the likes of Google and the likes of Facebook and the likes of other tech companies, because the world has shifted in terms of the markets of what the market consists of. Well, that's another ethical consideration when you're dealing with governments like China, and you're dealing with these despot and dictatorship and tyrannical governments that they don't play by the same rules that they're supposed to play by. They don't play by free market rules. They make up their own rules because they have created an already an imbalanced market in their region. So now you have to go from a sports team, for example, you're going into like a soccer game where you knew the rules and you need to follow the rules, and now all of a sudden you're going to a soccer match where the rules only apply to you but not to your opponents. So your opponents they're grabbing the soccer ball with the hands, they're punching you in the face, they're tripping you up and kicking you in the nuts, and then they're scoring like 1 million goals, and you're like, what's going on here? The amused as a result of the free market, monopolies are a part of the free market. Read any Mises article about it. The entire legislation is a result of the free market. The free market is for the elites, not for the I don't agree with that venture. No. I don't necessarily agree with that statement, because you've had plenty of businesses throughout the history of the United States, for example, where these businesses started from nothing and they became I mean, just look at Apple, for example. Apple started with nothing and they became huge. Wendy's started from nothing. They became huge. McDonald's started with nothing. They became huge. Coca-Cola and Pepsi started with nothing and they became huge. And there's a million of these stories. I could spend an entire stream just listing out all these companies that started with very, very humble beginnings and they became conglomerates and giants. No, I say that we do have free markets, and that the free markets do allow for different sized businesses to compete in different tiers, and you can move amongst those tiers depending on how the markets are in that point in time, how what the technology is available to you, what level of innovation you put into it. Oh, I agree with that, G Gallon. I agree with that. I don't think bailouts are a good idea, because you're really screwing around with the natural process of businesses failing and rebuilding, which is part of is part of the market cycle. Well, troll MJJT, you raise a good point there, and that's what I mean. Like like I said earlier, I'm okay with a reasonable level of laws on the book, like anti-monopoly laws, to prevent abuse of the markets. But the government shouldn't be involved in creating winners and losers. That's where the problem lies, is when the government comes in and says, well, we're going to make winners out of these guys. We're going to bail out these, but these guys, screw them. We're not going to help them. It becomes a mess. It becomes a mess when you start putting fingers and toes and onto the scales, and you're messing with all of the balances. Now, I'm not saying that a completely free and open market with zero checks, zero regulations, zero everything is the ideal, because that's not, because you're going to have people that are going to abuse it. So, to me, I think the best approach is understand the market, the free market, understand how capitalism is supposed to work, put in some protections and some reasonable level of laws to prevent businesses and services to create a huge imbalance. Try to keep a balance, and that's how you can create a vibrant economy, a vibrant corporate environment, a vibrant environment to create business and manufacturing and service-centric businesses and product-centric service businesses. You have to create a kind of a foundation for all these businesses to grow on and make it so it's balanced. I don't like nationalized anything. Nationalized anything ends up being hugely costly, inefficient, and it's never good quality. Just look at Russia. Russia had nationalized everything when it was the USSR, and it produced the Yugo. And the Yugo was what? A car that had the engine of a sewing machine? Yeah, Canada is a mess for a lot of that kind of stuff. Nationalized anything is a bad idea in terms of market. Nationalized services and products are not good. You're never getting high quality. You're never getting efficiency. You're never getting financial responsibility. I mean, it's a mess. And China is another example of that. A lot of corporations are owned by the Chinese government. Look at the quality. Look at the quality of Chinese products that we have in the United States. They're pretty terrible. They're really, really, really bad. So no, I don't think those are good. That's a good approach. A nationally owned, like a government owned business of any kind or service, it's gonna turn into crap. Business oversight is a little bit different. If you have a business oversight, if you have a government oversight on a business because of the type of business that it is that requires government to keep an eye on what you're doing, because you're dealing with, like if you have a nuclear power plant, for example, yeah, I guess it makes sense for the government to keep an eye on what you're doing with nuclear material. And you have to abide by certain regulations that are for environmental purposes. So you think, and also safety reasons, things of that kind. Those kind of things make more sense to me. Those things make sense to have a little bit more government oversight because of the nature of those businesses. But ownership by the government, no, I don't think government should own anything in terms of anything commercial, services, products, anything like that, because invariably in every example that you can bring, hey, thank you for the ice cream. Thank you for the ice creams. I did not realize they'd be overlapping each other. So I did not realize that if people donated multiple ice creams that they just keep overlapping each other. There we go. Thank you very much for all those donations of ice creams. Marcus DP, much appreciated. I really appreciate the support. Speaking of support, this is a good opportunity here to oh, hey, wow, look at that. I like that image. Can I steal it? I like that, Illustrator. That's really cool. If you say I can steal it, I'll steal it from you. Just let me know. Anyways. No, but I was going to say this is a good opportunity for shamelessly promoting myself. Since we're talking about markets and products and services and things of that nature, hey, if you like hearing me ramble on and, talk about the free market and want to support me, as you saw, people are donating lemons on DLive. You can send me some cryptocurrency. The address is in my description here. The wallet is in the description on Bitwave and some other video platforms if you can see it. If not, just come to Bitwave and you'll be able to see that right there. Or you can buy me a coffee, as you can see on the website, coffee.com/theeternalabyss, KO-FI. Please donate. Any level of generosity is appreciated. If you rather support me non-financially, honestly, that's even better. I prefer follows, I prefer shares, I prefer, growth. More people watch me, more people follow me, more people support me. That's the best thing you can do for me. So please share, support on all my different platforms. I have a few on my screen there at the bottom of the screens for Twitter, Gab, Parlay, Minds, Float.app, and all the video platforms that I'm on. As I greeted everybody at the beginning of the stream, I greet everybody and I let everybody know that I'm on YouTube, Twitch, Bitwave, Float.app, Periscope, DLive, things of that nature. So follow and please help me grow on those platforms. I'm on BitChute as well for archiving. I've been, slowly trying to get back into catching up on that. I'm woefully behind, I know. So, but please follow if you can. Everything's appreciated. A Monero wallet? I don't even know what a Monero wallet is, friend. I'd have to look into that. What are my thoughts about float.app? I started using it. It was folks on Bitwave introduced it to me. They said it was an interesting platform to get on. I'm streaming on it right now. And everything is, for a small platform that's just starting out, I think it's pretty cool. It works relatively well. It already has a mobile app that's in beta and everything. I think that it's an interesting alternative social media platform compared to like Gab and Parlay. I do kind of like it for the reason that it is kind of small and niche. You don't have a lot of all these people that are coming over. Like the biggest problem that I saw, for example, with Parlay, for example, is that you had people coming over that were the blue check marks, conservative blue check marks from Twitter. They came over to Parlay, and Parlay automatically gave them all this status. And the people like myself that were trying to kind of grow and build a platform, we immediately just got shafted, essentially, because now we got thrown back into the back of the line again, as if we didn't even exist. And that was kind of unfair, in my view, that they automatically got all this clout and distribution of their posts, versus I've been there for months and months before they even, like, before Candace Owen got on, or before Prison Planet, like Paul Joseph Watson got on. And I'm not saying they can't get on. By all means, get on. Expand your platforms. I'm perfectly okay with that. But it seems a little unfair of a platform like Parlay to just say, okay, well, you've been here for a while. Your growth doesn't really matter that much because we're gonna get the famous people now on, and you're gonna have this gap again between blue check marks and non-blue check marks. Because I'm not gonna go through this whole process of making myself giving myself a subscription on every single platform. That's financially not viable for me. It's not worth it. At least not right now. It's not worth it because I just don't have the support to do something like that. It's a privacy coin, Monero. You can't trace who sent whom what. Oh, that's interesting. Well, I'll check it out. I'll check it out because I'm looking for alternate ways of receiving donations because I don't like PayPal. I don't want to use PayPal anymore. In fact, I stopped putting that onto my screen because I don't like that anymore. Oh, okay. Monero is the coin all the drug dealers use. So you're saying I should do stuff that drug dealers do? Is that what you're telling me? It can be a pain, Marcus. It's not easy. In fact, sooner or later, I have a lot of platforms that I'm on. And sooner or later, I'm going to have to make a choice myself to start pruning some of these platforms because it's just too much effort to cross-post. And it's too much effort to try and build a following on all these platforms. So I'd hate to leave some of these because some of these are quite interesting. Like Minds, for example. I actually like Minds as a platform. I think it's very well built. I think that it's structured in a very interesting way. Do I get a lot of views and follows? I don't even know. I don't even have it doesn't even give me analytics per se. And that's one of the things that I kind of, as much as I hate Twitter, for example, The one thing that I do appreciate of Twitter is the fact that you can actually view analytics and the spread of your tweets. I haven't really been able to see much of that on platforms like Gab or Parler or Minds or even Float. I mean, I would love to see something like that on Float to see like what kind of reach do my posts have? And what kind of impact does, like, because I post things in one way on Twitter. If I post it the same exact way in Gab and on Parler, does it have the same kind of distribution? Should I format it differently? Should I use different hashtags, for example? So it makes it a little hard to try and do a cross-platforming thing. And plus, there is no platform right now that helps you schedule things that goes across all of these platforms because nobody supports them. It is a big, big problem for me. For someone who has all these platforms, and I want to post once on Twitter, Gab, Parler, Minds, Float, but I can't do that because some of these don't even have an API that you can build. So it makes things difficult. It makes things complicated. Can it be done? Can I post to all these different things? Yeah, sure, whatever. No big deal. But does it make it more complicated? Yeah, it does make it more complicated. And unfortunately, I'm the one that's gonna have to deal with it when that's the case, So I don't know. I mean, to me, I like all these platforms. I like the idea of them. I want to support them because Twitter is trash. Well, I think if you want to build an API for them, or build code that can support this sort of cross posting for all these alternative platforms, yeah, it's doable for sure. In fact, I've been working on doing something like that too. I don't know if anything's going to come out of it, but that's something that I've been working on as a side project. So I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen with that. If I'm ever going to finish that, or if I'm actually going to just abandon it. Well, so I was just reading chat. Marcus is saying, for what I've seen so far, when it comes to smaller streaming platforms, Bitwave seems like the most well built of them all, but has issues with doxing, which makes people afraid of the platform, which sucks ass. I like Bitwave. I like how it's built. I like the platform. It's very easy to set up streaming. It's very easy to set up an account. It's a very, believe it or not, Bitwave is a very welcoming platform. I mean, nobody knew me here when I first joined in, and a lot of you guys knew each other from like the Stream Meet times and such. I came in and I was very welcomed, and I appreciate that. And there is this issue of doxing, but I've also seen the other side where there are people that respect privacy at the same time. So I feel that while there may be some of those concerns, I think that if people put those fears aside, I think that they could be successful streamers on Bitwave, and they don't really need to be that afraid about that sort of thing. So, but I wanted to talk about a couple other things. It's getting kind of late here. I wanted to talk about a couple other things before I concluded the stream. And I'm trying to think what those things were now because I got completely sidetracked from everything that I wanted to talk about. There are a couple things. I think paranoia people do get paranoid about that sort of thing. I mean, I admit that I have my concerns about that, and it's not so much for me. I just don't want people around me to be affected by what I do. Many people can't handle Bitwave chat. Yeah, you guys are a little extreme for some people. You are. You trigger people. Bitwave chat triggers people. Oh boy. Well, there are a couple. I'm trying to think of the other things that I wanted to talk about. I should have written this down, but I had it all in my head. I wanted to talk about it needs to be editorialized. No. I don't want editorialization. I just want that if a platform is open, it should be open. Bitwave is very much a totally different animal. That is for sure. It is definitely not anything like Twitch or YouTube or DLive or it is very different. Bitwave is its own universe when it comes to how streaming is done and how chat is and all those kind of things. For sure. But stop. You're gonna get me in trouble. You're gonna get me in trouble with the ninnies at YouTube and Twitch and other platforms. Come on, be nice. But there are a couple. I'm trying to think what the other things that I wanted to talk about. This whole Hunter Biden thing, which we talked about. That I wanted to talk about Twitter and the censorship. We talked already about. Maybe I talked about all the topics I wanted to talk about already. I have a feeling there's something I'm forgetting, though. Hold on, let me check my Twitter feed real quick. I have a feeling there's something I'm forgetting. Well, did you hear, speaking of Twitter, did you hear that earlier Twitter was down? Twitter was completely borked for a while. I don't know what happened with it. It was pretty bad. Nothing was coming up. You couldn't get notifications. You couldn't tweet anything. Your feed was just like frozen. Nothing was happening. It was pretty crazy. That's what I wanted to talk about. Steve Scully. Now, Steve Scully was supposed to be the moderator for the second debate, right? Oh yeah. He was supposed to be the moderator, and there's this whole Yeah, I know it's a mark game, but I'd rather not get involved in that because I was trying to stay on the good side of YouTube. I'm just now starting to get into people's recommended videos. Did you know about this? Sold Out to let me in on this. He sent me a couple of times. He keeps saying, hey, you're showing up as my recommended videos on YouTube. I'm actually getting into the algorithm. Can you believe that? I'm shocked. I'm quite shocked. I didn't think I was ever going to get into anybody's recommended video list at all. But Steve Scully, this guy was supposed to be the moderator for the second debate between Trump and Biden, right? I know. I can't believe that. I can't believe it either. Ask Soldat. He can confirm it. It's in the comments on the videos. The latest couple episodes of my morning shows. Go to YouTube and check it out. He put the comments on there. I kid you not. So I'm apparently after a year of doing streams, YouTube was like, "Oh, this guy's doing streams. Let's just throw him here, throw him a couple crumbs, you know." But but really, no, I'm shocked. I'm quite shocked. Jenny Ting. No, but what I was saying about Steve Scully was this guy was supposed to be the moderator for Biden and Trump, the debate. And he ended up tweeting publicly to Scaramucci, Anthony Scaramucci, the absolute moron, the mooch, this absolute douchemonger, who has a chip on his shoulder because he got drunk and spoke to a reporter and couldn't keep a job longer than 10 days. This guy publicly tweeted Scaramucci about, like, what am I supposed to say to Trump? He's trying to elicit information from Scaramucci to use against Trump. who he was supposed to be this objective, neutral moderator, and you had Frank Lutz from he does all the polls and everything. He's like, I've known Steve Scully for 20 years. He's an upstanding guy. He's an honest guy. I will be fair, G. Gallen. There were some choices that Trump made that I felt he was giving people a little bit too much of a chance. I felt that he should have been a little bit more discriminatory in his staff. I still feel that way because I don't like who he has in the Department of Justice, for example. I don't think Bill Barr has really been doing that good a job, for example. There are some people that I wish he would have picked that would have been better for the job. Some people he picked, fantastic. Excellent choices. He's made some amazing picks. Especially like for Supreme Court justices, he's made some amazing picks for like the communications department. Like Sarah Huckabee Sanders was absolutely fantastic. Sean Spicer was a great choice too. John Spicer was great. I think he did a good job. Certain people in his inner circle have also been really, really good. Some people not so good. So with Trump, it's been a little bit of a hit or miss for certain things. I'm more than happy to admit that. I'm not such a Trump supporter that I can't admit when I see something wrong. So there have been some bad choices. Scaramucci was definitely a bad choice. I maybe understand why he gave him a chance. He knew the guy. They had a relationship. He wanted to give him a job. He thought he could do a good job. But Scaramucci had an opportunity there. And Scaramucci absolutely dropped the ball. Scaramucci sabotaged himself, essentially, because he could have done a good job. He had every reason to do a good job, every opportunity to do so, but what does he do? He completely screws it up because the guy apparently just is an idiot. I mean, how do you mess it up so bad? You were given a golden opportunity on a silver platter, and what do? You drop your pants and you take a big dump on it. I'm sorry. That's more a reflection, in my opinion, that's more of a reflection on how idiotic Scaramucci is, and not so much a bad choice. Hey, Magna. Hail King Magna. How are you doing, sir? Good to see you on stream. Yeah, Ice Cube apparently turned around. He's working with the president now. See, that's one thing that I can at least appreciate of Ice Cube and people like Ice Cube. Even if you don't really like President Trump, if you're willing to just work with him, just sit down, converse with him, try to have a conversation with him, try to work with him for the benefit of what you're hoping for, what's wrong with that? You don't have to love the guy. You don't have to like the guy. You just have to respect the position, saying, okay, you're the president. I may not agree with you, but just let's sit down and see if we can work something out. That's really all you need to do. Well, the problem with having the House was he had a lot of people against him. I mean, McCain, for example, with the thumbs down on the ACA, that was a big, that right there is a clear indication of even if you had a majority, you did not really have a majority. Trump, he had a majority on paper, but not in practice. That's the problem. And it's a sad reality that he had a lot of people against him within his own party. He was fighting both parties when he first got elected. Yeah, I mean there was a lot of problems. There was a lot of problems with how certain things were handled. But honestly, I feel overall Trump has done a tremendous job no matter what. There has been good, there has been bad. There has been ups, there has been downs. But I think overall Trump, despite working, fighting with Republicans that were against him, Democrats that were against him, having people trying to sabotage him left and right, having a coup happening all the time until present day, he's been doing a fantastic job. Whether you like every decision or you're more critical of his decisions, or in my case, there's a lot that I like. There are things that I don't. I think objectively speaking, you have to admit that he did a good job overall. So, But going back to Steve Scully, this guy solicited information, colluded, so to speak, with the mooch, right? So now he claims he shut down his account and he said, oh, it's been hacked. It's been hacked. I didn't say that. It was hacked. And you had people like Frank Luntz, as I mentioned, were like, oh, he's an honest guy. I've known him for 20 years. He's full of integrity. Turns out, BS. There was no hack. C-SPAN has suspended him. This was the guy that everybody was claiming was, oh, he's gonna be objective. He's not he's gonna be neutral. He's not a biased moderator. No. Nothing wrong with them. Nothing wrong with that. But now all of a sudden he's suspended from C-SPAN. He never was hacked. That was actually him. And the best part of this is this. Why isn't anybody wondering about Scaramucci? Nobody's asking about Scaramucci. This guy was actively interfering in a presidential debate. Let me repeat that. It bears repeating. Anthony Scaramucci was interfering and colluding with a moderator of a presidential debate to try and have an influence on voters. That is called meddling in the election. That is called election interference. Isn't that against the law? Last I checked, it was against the law. So, I want to know why Mr. Mooch is not being investigated at this point. I find it very troubling that there's been no announcement on this saying, we're looking into this dude now. I think he bears investigating. Trump has made half Americans rabidly hate U.S. news organizations. That's good enough for me. You know, I hated news organizations before Trump. Trump just, he just made it like really beautiful. He just opened the eyes up of many more people. Nah, I don't think so. I don't think that he's fascist, and I don't think that he should have gone full like dictator mode. I do think now that if he wins a second term, he can be much more forceful in certain things because now he doesn't have to worry about being reelected. So he can push his hand a little harder on certain things. I think in these 4 years he was being more measured in certain responses for that reason. Because at the end of the day, he wanted a second term, so he had to be a little bit more careful about certain things. Yeah, I know you're kidding, G. Gallon. I know. Excuse me. Is more of a third term strategy. Well, you know, that would be pretty interesting to see if in American history, and I'm not even talking about Trump. I'm talking in general. You had like FDR. FDR had 4 terms. 4 terms. I find that amazing. And I know that they changed the laws so you can't have more than 2 terms, but it would be interesting to see with any president, if someone loves a president so much and he does such a great job, I do wonder if that's ever going to like come into play again. I'm okay with 2 terms. I don't want anything more than 2 terms. But I do find that interesting. FDR was a little strange about that whole situation there. Well, I mean, what do you mean by stacking the courts though? Question C. What do you mean by that? FDR was interesting in the fact that, you know, it's a very interesting part of American history in terms of politics, because it's not something you see every day that you have someone that gets elected 4 times in a row in America, because that usually didn't happen. Well, I mean, okay, question C, like putting 100 ACBs on the court. Well, actually, technically, Trump has already done that. He's appointed a lot of conservative constitutionalist judges onto the court. So in a sense, they kind of already have stacked the court in a way. But the thing is, this is something that every president does. Obama did it. Bush did it. Clinton did it. Bush Sr. did it. Reagan did it. Every president that has an opportunity to fill seats are going to fill seats according to whatever judicial temperament they're looking for. So that's not really unusual. I wouldn't necessarily call it stacking the court. I think it's normal. I think it's pretty normal for a politician to put a justice or a judge in any place where a seat is vacant that is going to align with what he wants. Well, FDR definitely has been put on a pedestal for the war, because that's really what he was primarily known for. So there's a lot of things about what FDR did that I think, I mean, the Democrats have FDR, they put him up there like with John F. Kennedy as one of the best Democrat presidents ever. I disagree with a lot of his policy decisions. I think that we won the war despite of FDR, of how he behaved and the deals that he cut and things of that nature. I don't know if I necessarily say that we shouldn't have cut a deal with Russia, but the thing is, it's thanks to Russia. Russia and the United States working together was something that really had a major impact on fighting the Axis during World War II. Well, see, the thing is though is this, G. Gallen. I don't know if I agree with Pat Buchanan. I think the problem was this. I think the war dragged on further than it should have because America did not get involved sooner. You had Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill, at the very beginning, before the war even began, before World War II even began, Winston Churchill pegged Hitler a mile away. He saw what Hitler wanted to do in terms of expansion and conquest. He saw that a mile away. So he resisted this sort of thing from the very beginning, which is why people like Chamberlain were such ninnies and appeasers. They caused their appeasing and not pushing back is what really initiated this expansion and then invasion of Poland and all these things, which then triggered the war. You had the rise of fascism and the rise of socialism and the rise of communism. You had it in Spain, you had it in Italy, you had it in Germany, you had it in Russia. And you had this movement that they should care about Poland because eventually Poland would become England. That's why the English needed to care, because it was going to come to their shores. And if you're going to have an enemy that's going to come to your shores, would you rather take care of this enemy when they're in a smaller and weaker state, or when they conquered all of Europe? That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter that Poland is not England. I don't agree with that. I mean, if no, Churchill was not McCain. No, they're not even close. Not quite sold up, because what happened with World War II was you had these treaties. You had treaties between it wasn't the European Union, but you had, there's this one treaty, I can't think of the name of it right now. But there was a treaty, and they were meeting regularly with all the heads of European countries would meet and would discuss. And you had, for example, Hitler in these meetings as well, saying, well, I want Lithuania, for example. Or I want Luxembourg. That was what it was, Luxembourg. Luxembourg was not present in this get-together, this get-together here. And the European Union were like, well, we don't want conflict. We don't want conflict. We had World War I. We don't want conflict. Let's just give it to let's just give it to Hitler. Just appease him. Appease. Well, there was a treaty. No, there was also Luxembourg involved. That Luxembourg came afterwards, because I have a whole book on this that talks about that. Because what happened was the head of state, the head of Luxembourg wasn't even present, and they just gave the land to Hitler. He's like, wait, what? But even if it's a German-speaking region, okay, you just can't hand over countries and land just because you want to appease a dictator. That is a recipe for disaster. That's why Chamberlain was one of the main causes of the start of World War II. Because all that he did and what the rest of Europe was doing was appeasing a dictator, because they were trying to avoid another world war, because they had just gone through World War I, and it was devastating. And I understand the sentiment behind it, but at the same time, you can't prevent a war by just making it easy to create a new one. So the problem is you run into that situation, and Winston Churchill was one of the few people that recognized the threat of the threat that German posed to Europe, because they weren't going to stop at German-speaking provinces and countries. Hitler had no reason to go into Poland, for example. Yeah, World War I and World War II are definitely had ramifications that we're feeling today, which is why we have the European Union today as well. For the same stupid reasons, because they're trying to prevent any sort of conflict. When conflict does not necessarily mean war. Yeah, but he had no reason to go into Poland. He didn't need to go in as a conqueror, okay? If there were disputes of land, that this land should have belonged to Germany, for example, there could have been other ways to approach it instead of going in as a conqueror. Hitler's goals were to conquer Europe. He was not going to stop. he conquered? Why do you think the Nazis conquered all of France, basically? They went into Spain. They conquered Italy. Italy was not a German-speaking country. They went into Eastern Europe. They were in North Africa, for the love of God. So, yeah, but still, Hitler should have gone to the UN. Maybe. No, the point is this. Listen, Hitler's goals were not noble. Yeah, but going into occupying a land to curb retaliation is not a justification for occupying land. Well, listen. Hitler's goal, Hitler made it very clear that his goal wasn't just to fight communists. Hitler had very clear goals on who he was fighting. So it's not I'm not overgeneralizing anyways. Hey Mitch, how you doing? No, listen, Hitler's goals were pretty clear. His speeches were pretty clear about what his goals were. His whole point was basically to conquer the world at a certain point. No, it wasn't just fighting over resources. It was expansion. It was building an empire. Actually, I do. I have an entire book that really specifically talks about only World War II. If you want one day, I'll read the entire thing on stream, because it goes very much in depth. No, this has nothing to do with the Soviets. This has to do with no. He said it himself. He wanted to create the 100-year Reich or whatever it was called. He was a dictator. Simple. He was a dictator. He killed to govern. He did a coup to get into power. You have a King County ballot that your coworker gave you? That's not a transcript, that's just reality. Anyways, the point is this. He was a dictator, whatever your sensibilities are towards what he did. These are not transcripts during the war. This is post-war. This is post-analysis of everything that happened in the past. These are people that don't really have a dog in any race. They're just documenting what happened. So if the guy's a dictator, there's plenty of evidence of atrocities that he committed. And if he was so not interested in conquering, then he shouldn't have gone out conquering the world. But this isn't the OSS that I'm talking about. This isn't Russian transcripts. So I don't know what you're talking about. The whole point that I'm making is that, listen, I've spoken to people who lived under World War II. They went through it. So they saw the suffering that World War II caused firsthand. So I'd rather just leave it at that, because really I'm not interested in going over World War II in history. This is supposed to be a current event news show and politics show. But anyways, I don't know, that kind of stuff is very interesting. Are you in the waiting room already, Mitch? Yep, you are. All right, hold up. Let me put you in here.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going, sir. How are you? Let me make sure that people can hear you.
Yeah, they should be able to hear me.
Yep, there you go.
I went to the office today, and a couple of the people I work with do. We have a branch in Seattle, and one of the guys I work with, he's Indian. We'll just call him Sidier. That's not his real name, but he's like, oh, Mitch, I don't know what the fuck any of this shit means on this ballot. What the fuck is all this? I'm like, what are you talking about? Because like my ballot is literally like president and Congress. You know, click for Trump, click for Amandi, send it out. My ballot was easy. My Nevada ballot. Plus, Nevada's mail-in universal, so it's probably all rigged anyway. He's like, I don't know what the fuck all this means. What the fuck is this shit? So his ballot, the first referendum. Oh, you'll love this one. This is where the left is taking us. By the way, it's gonna sound confusing, but when I explain, it'll be very easy. The legislature passed engrossed submissive Senate bill concerning comprehensive sexual health education. This bill would require school districts to adopt or develop consistent with state standards comprehensive age-appropriate sexual health education as defined for all students and excuse students if their parents request it. So this means they're going to teach sex ed in kindergarten. That's what this is a referendum on.
Yikes.
So the state of Washington is teaching sex ed in kindergarten, and a lot of people were against it, so they're putting it on a referendum. Teaching sex ed in kindergarten is how you get spooky. That's what that. That's how you get spooky, thing, by teaching sex ed in kindergarten.
Parents,
There's another good one.
Oh, one moment, parents, be warned. You don't want your kids to be like spooks. Just saying.
Yeah, you don't want your kids to be like spooks. Here's another good one. An increase in tax on business and occupation for certain businesses while reducing certain surcharges. No, I'm sorry, that was the other one. Sorry, I just put two of them together. Yeah, one is about reducing for certain businesses and increasing on certain businesses up to $843 million in the first 10 years of government. That's the first one. The next one is a incremental business tax resulting in over $1 billion in the first 10 years. That's another tax increase on there. There's a... this is good. The King County Charter will be amended to replace the word citizen with public or member of the public or resident as applicable. You can see.
What?
Look at this fucking thing. Charter, and you guys can look this up. Charter Amendment 3, reference to citizens. I looked at this thing, he gave me this, and he's like, what the fuck does this mean? And I'm like, can I bring this home with me for a night? He's like, oh yeah, tell me what to do with this fucking thing. I don't know. I was like, yeah, no, let me look at this thing. This is exactly how he talks, by the way. He legitimately talks like that. Like, he wouldn't be offended by me doing that. Oh.
That's insane.
Then, like he lives in Shoreline, so basically, Pramila Jayapal. No, actually, I take that back. He lives in Seattle. He doesn't live in Shoreline. Pramila Jayapal is the representative in his district. That's all you need to really know. But I look at all this because I think Spooky lives in this area, and I'm like, dude, Spooky. I like this one. Lieutenant Governor, Democrat versus Democrat. That's where the state is going. Legislative district, Democrat versus Democrat. Insurance commissioner, Democrat versus Democrat. Oh, this is a good one. The Commissioner of Public Lands, Democrat. Oh, it's Republican. I thought that said Libertarian for a second. I was like, Jesus Christ. Superintendent of Public Instruction, quote unquote, nonpartisan office. These are the people who are pushing sex ed on our kids. Democrat versus Democrat, basically. I know who both these people are. That's what's going. I basically said if I were you, I'd fill out Trump, and then fill out the guy running against Jayapal, and then write in somebody for lieutenant governor. But and then vote for Cole for governor. But like this is where they're taking us. This is where the left is taking us. This is Seattle, the Seattle shoreline area. This is where it's coming. This is where it's going. You want your kid. Remember that? You ever, I don't know how much South Park you watched. There's a South Park episode where Mr. Garrison's teaching the kid, like kindergarten kids, about sex ed. And he's having the kindergarten kids like name like sex positions.
Oh my
And
god.
he's like military, yeah, military, that's right. Missionary, that's right. That's old but true. Yeah, what else you got there? The Dirty Sanchez. Oh yeah, the Dirty Sanchez. Yeah, good one. I remember that one. The Hot Carl. Oh yeah, no, you gotta give him the old Hot Carl. Yeah, that's actually happening in Seattle, in Washington. But anyway, I wanted to brighten. I heard the things kind of going off the rails. I figured I'd jump in and be like, oh, I guess we'll enjoy hearing about the insanity of this.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Mitch. I always enjoy having you on.
Yeah, maximum 20 years penalties for. Yeah, okay, yeah, that's a long one, but basically, health insurance fraud, getting out of jail early for insurance fraud. There is oh yeah, there's a section in here about buying hotels and turning them into homeless shelters. That's always good.
Jeez.
Reducing the police budget. That's really good. Yeah, again, that's what's happening in Seattle, Shoreline, Renton, King County. This is spook territory. This is what, again, it's coming to a district near you. If we don't elect Trump and kind of get Republicans to grow a goddamn spine. Anyway, I'll see myself out, my friend.
All right, thank you so much, Mitch, for stopping by. Hey, if
have a good evening.
You too, sir. If you can, it'd be really great if you could take a picture of that and just like post it on social media so people can see what the hell's going on. That'll be good, in my opinion, I think. But yeah, good Lord. It's you're right. Was it G Gallon? No, it's question C. Question C. You're right. It's not surprising that something like that would come from the West Coast. That's just insanity. Defunding the police, those kind of things. It amazes me. It really amazes me. One thing that I always found interesting, I've seen this in other places too, where you have either just one candidate on the ballot, that's one party, or you have two of the same party candidate for a position. I've always found that very fascinating. I never understood why that's allowed. I don't think that should be allowed. I always think that if an election has to happen, you have to have a choice. And I understand that maybe there isn't someone who's really particularly interested in filling a position. But at the same time, it's like I don't think it's a disservice in my opinion. Jungle primary. Yeah. I don't like that though. I don't really like that. I feel that in any election, in any position that a voter has to make a decision on, I feel that it behooves the public interest to have at least two parties, at least some sort of choice and a counterbalance. I don't think that there should be just a sole person on there that just doesn't give you any sort of ability to say, well, if I don't like this guy, who can I choose if there's nobody else, But that's quite disturbing to me to hear something like that, to be honest with you. Oh, the West Coast is pretty crazy. I've heard some pretty insane things coming out because I have friends that live out in Oregon. I have friends that live out in California. The stuff that you hear coming out of the West Coast can be pretty bizarre, to be honest with you. It's really, really bizarre. That's not to say that you don't find some weird stuff in other parts of the world. I mean, not the world, but other parts of the United States. You do. But it seems like there's all this really, really nutter butter stuff happening out in California, happening out in Seattle, happening out in Oregon, Portland, Seattle. I mean, just look at all the protests that have been happening out there that have been sheerly out of control compared to like maybe protests that happen, I don't know, maybe in DC in comparison, or in even Chicago. It hasn't really been the same caliber. So that's very fascinating stuff. And I want to thank Mitch very much for sharing that sort of thing. It's very interesting to get that insight that you don't always get. I mean, you don't usually get to see like from one state to another. There's not a lot of comparison and back and forth and seeing what's going on. The concern that I have about a lot of those referendums, for example, is not even so much the content of the referendums, because if you have a referendum and people vote against it, there is already now precedent that the state can say, you know what? I think you're wrong. Screw the referendum. We're going to do what we want anyways. That's what they did in California on multiple occasions. The precedent has been set. That was another problem with a lot of stuff that came up to the Supreme Court during the Obama years. You had referendums, people voted against it, and then they brought it up to the Supreme Court to overturn the people's will. That is not a good thing. That is not a good thing in democracy. Or a constitutional republic, I mean. So it's not a good thing when the will of the people is just summarily thrown aside because a handful of people that are in government think they know better than you. I don't think that's a good idea. Just saying. But I think we're at a point here. It's getting a little late. We're at a good point here that we can end the stream. I want to thank Mitch for coming on. I want to thank everybody for watching on all the different platforms that I'm on. I want to say thank you to everybody on BitChute. Not BitChute. What the hell am I saying? Bitwave. I want to say thank you to everybody on Twitch, Periscope, DLive, YouTube, Float.app. And if I forgot anything, forgive me, but it's late. I'm tired. I have a headache. So thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Remember, kids, don't be complacent, especially now. This election matters in a way you cannot even imagine. We need that red wave, as Trump put it. We do need that red wave. So get out there, vote, get Trump in for another 4 years. Let's make sure to keep the Senate red. We flip the House. We need to make sure that America does not go communist. America does not go socialist. The restreamer's working. Restreamer's working again. Dispatch the issue. I don't know what happened back then that day, but everything's working now. So thank you everybody so much for your support. Please follow, share, hit notification on everything. Have a wonderful night. We'll see you tomorrow morning for the morning show. Make sure you have your coffee. You don't want to miss that. And have a good night. We'll see you tomorrow.